There is so much, if you think it, you will get it, but I still don't think it's gonna fix everything for me.
No. I mean, listen, whatever you think about consistently, you tend to manifest in your life. But there are other things beyond just that one force of what you want. To think otherwise is think you're the center of the universe, which is absurd to me. So you're saying the law of attraction is bullshit? I said, no, law of attraction is real. It's one of dozens of laws. And you're saying that's the whole game?
I'm sitting down with the iconic Tony Robbins, modern day philosopher, author. If you're sick of the platitudes and the manifesting and unable to build a tactical, sustainable daily approach to improving your life, today's episode is for you. Stop creating flimsy New Year's resolutions. Change your life for real today with me. So many people feel like they can't say the thing that might actually help because it might hurt somebody's feelings.
Where did we get up this thing that you're not supposed to offend anybody? If you're not going to offend anybody, you're not going to have any impact. Sometimes you got to do what's uncomfortable. Otherwise, you're just making yourself feel good. I can make myself feel good and go, gosh, that's so horrible. I understand. And F that. Some part of you wants transformation or you wouldn't be in my presence. And it's going to happen. We all tell ourselves stories about things. Our narrative of our life controls our life more than anything else. So you have to divorce your limitations and marry the truth of your unlimited ability.
What are the biggest lies that we are told because it seems nice instead of true today? Okay, I want to talk about a million things with you. I've been so excited to have this conversation.
Great to have you.
Thanks for taking the time. I want to talk about a thing that I used to think was touchy-feely. And then actually you were one of the first guys that made me realize you could have all the tools, all the tactics, all the metrics. But if you don't have your mind right, none of it'll work.
Right.
And one of the things that I love about you is you've beaten into my mind that peak performance starts with mindset.
Yes.
And that is not actually a touchy-feely thing. But you've also hinted that in some ways, there's something that comes before mindset. And why is the order of that so important?
This actually came because this is going to be my 49th year. I've traveled the earth at a really unique time. I've been in every single major country in the world. I have clients in every country of the world. So 193 countries, give you an idea. Wow. And so after a while, you recognize patterns. And one of the patterns that I began to recognize is what creates a breakthrough. Because I'm interested not in just managing something or making it better. I want to scale something. I want to see it grow. Mm-hmm. So, or a breakthrough in your personal life. Same thing. Somebody's going along and they try to change, don't follow through, try to change, don't follow through, beat themselves up. Like, what is the difference between the person who beat themselves up and the time when he or she finally broke through? And what I found is there's actually 3 elements to it. And the reason most people fail to have a breakthrough, I experience, is that they go after them in the wrong sequence. It's kind of like if you know the right numbers to a vault and you put them in the wrong order, you don't get the treasure, right? Yep. Same thing with your phone number. You don't reach the person. So I'll give you the 3 S's to a breakthrough. The first one is not the most valuable one. It's the first one people go for. It's strategy. Now, for you and I, strategy seems like the most natural thing to go for. If I want to achieve something, how do I do it? That's the number one question, right? But the problem with asking, how do I do it is, if you've never done it before, most people then go into what I call the tyranny of how. The tyranny of how is like, have you ever done this? Set a goal, maybe when you're really young. I'm going to do this. You maybe even told people you're going to do this, and this voice in your head goes, who are you kidding, right? Yeah. Because what happens is you start to doubt because you have no reference base. You have no experience. Mm-hmm. And so when you're uncertain, you don't follow through. You look at a peak performer, what makes them a peak performer, if you watch them going down that court in the NBA or NFL or whatever sport it may be, you feel this relentless energy. There's not an ounce of hesitancy. There's absolute certainty. That doesn't guarantee success, but it increases the probability through the roof. When you focus on something you know how to do, the doubts show up. And then the second thing that happens is, I'll give you an example. Let's take a simplistic piece. 70% of Americans are overweight, right? Mm-hmm. We're the fattest country in the history of the world. We're infecting every other country with our dietary patterns, and people around the world are getting more and more ill. But is the secret to being fit and healthy like so complex that you only need super intelligent people can understand? Is it that it costs so much to learn that technology? Is it special only for the 0.1% of the population? No, the strategy of how to be fit and healthy, there's a million different strategies. There's not even just one. Mm-hmm. And they'll all work to a certain extent. Some are better than others, obviously. So it's not a strategy problem. Now, it's possible. I remember it's about 15 years ago, Time magazine had the cover of the magazine. It was the Atkins diet. And they said 14% of Americans are on the Atkins diet. Well, if you're on the Atkins diet, hopefully you woke up at some point and went, if anything makes my breath smell this bad, and I got to pee on a stick, so I got so much acid in my body, probably is not sustainable. But everybody did it. It worked for a short time. They went and did the piece to make it work. So some people did have the wrong strategy, but the real problem is the second S. I'm moving backwards in order of importance, meaning strategy is the least important, even though I consider myself a strategist. I know the right strategy could save you 10 years in your business. The right strategy could save you months in terms of turning your weight around or transforming a relationship. It could be minutes, right, if you have the right strategy. But people don't use the strategy because the second S gets in the way, which is their story. The story, we all tell ourselves stories about things. Our narrative of our life controls our life more than anything else. And all the story is a set of beliefs. And beliefs are nothing but things we've told ourselves over and over again with so much certainty that now we believe them. Like, for example, for yourself, if I can ask, can you think of any belief you may have had 10, 15 years ago that back then you would have fought for that belief, but today you're almost embarrassed you had that belief?
Yes.
Right? Most people can. So the fact that you believe it doesn't mean it's true. It just means you're certain. And so most people have certainty about what won't work. So let's take the example of fitness again. So why you ask that person who's 35 pounds overweight, how come you're overweight? Well, I've tried, what will they say? I've tried
everything.
That's right, everything. And I look at them and I say, with all due respect, you haven't tried everything. Yes, I have. I've tried thousands of things. Okay, name them. And then they'll go, well, I've tried, hundreds of things. Name them. Well, I've tried these 2 things that don't work over and over again is what it'll come down to, right? And they call that everything, right? So the story keeps them to do it. You're not in a relationship. You don't have a relationship. You say you want one. Why aren't you in one? Well, the good ones are all taken. They're gone. Or they're gay and I'm not. Or I'm gay and they're not, right? It's not true. It's just not true. But the story controls what you're willing to do or not do because it's a belief and beliefs control actions, right? So even if you have the right strategy, if your story doesn't support it, have you ever been with somebody and you were, let's say, trying to help them and you've got lots of skill. And so you're showing, hey, here's what you can do to take on small businesses and build a real mini empire for yourself, right? And you can do it with businesses people aren't competing you for and you can earn great cash flow and it's not sexy, but it's very successful. Well, let me show you how. And you can put all that in front of them and they're just like, no, it's like, no, that's not going to happen. It just won't work for me. You say, no, look, I can show you. I've done it. No, it doesn't work for me. And the more you push on them, then they get more irritated. And the reason they're irritated is they want to hang on to their story because the deepest fear everybody has, everyone has. Kings I've dealt with and queens, Academy Award winners, Grammy winners, winners of the NFL, the greatest players in history. Everybody has a fear at some point that they're not enough.
Yeah.
Not rich enough, not smart enough, not funny enough, not attractive enough, not playful enough, not something enough. And the deeper fear we have is that we're not enough, we won't be loved. And love is really, it's like the heartbeat of the soul, right? It's the essence, it's the oxygen of your soul. So people come up with a story so they can explain it's not that I'm not enough, it's just I have ADHD. Well, so did, Sir Richard Branson, he's done quite well, right? Don't confuse me with the facts. So the story, no matter how good and clear the strategy, and you do a fantastic job, I want to say on the air, I went through your book and I just thought you've made it so clear for people. And I would be doing this myself if I wasn't already as advanced as I've done in terms of size of businesses. If I was looking to start, it's a great way to do it. And in fact, I remembered it now. When I was really like 18, I went to a guy's course called Bizarre Financing. And it was all about how to build these small businesses, right? But I think you've done a more thorough job. But the point is, they're not going to do it if they don't have the right belief structure, right? So you have to divorce your limitations and marry the truth of your unlimited ability. Now, some people get divorced and then they go visit their divorcee on a regular basis. It's not a good idea. You have to just cut it off and no longer go there. You have to tap into the truth. As corny as it sounds, the truth will set you free. But for most people, they don't have someone to really do that to them. That's what I do. I create environments where that happens. But there is something before that. And that is the first S, the one you should start with, but most people rarely even get to. And that is your state. If you're going to have a breakthrough, it comes from your state. You can think of that as energy, vitality, strength, mental energy, mental fitness, right? All that really means is your mental, emotional state affects the way you perceive everything in life. Have you ever been pissed off at somebody and then you suddenly can remember everything that they ever did that pissed you off?
Of course not, never.
Right? So, and when you're in love, what's wrong with life if you fall totally in love?
Not a damn thing.
Nothing's wrong with it. It's where broken doesn't matter, we're in love, right? So your state controls your story. Your story and your state control whether you do anything. If no one showed you how to get the strategy, you'd figure out the strategy. You'd find the way, you'd make the way with the right state. So all the work I've done most of my life, I realized was start with a state. Because everywhere else you're starting, you're paying, you could teach them the best tools in the world. They won't follow through. If I start with a story, it's easy to shift their belief. and then I can teach them the tools. But if you don't do it in that order, people get very, very frustrated. If you do it in that order, it becomes very, very easy. Like, for example, think about this. Somebody says to you, okay, I know, I got to go on a diet. I gotta exercise. I'm going to do it. I'm really going to do it. Is it going to happen?
No.
It's not going to happen in a million years because the state they're in. Most people are trying to get themselves to do something. And what they don't understand is what you do is based on your state. And what do you think is harder, for example, dieting or fasting?
Dieting.
Yes, very much so.
Absolutism. Because fasting is absolute. You just don't do it.
That's
Dieting is like a rule by attrition.
Like, I have this, no, I'm having water. That's nothing, right?
Yeah.
So if you get to that place, that mindset, which is total resolve, that's what it takes to fast. In a state of resolve, it's easy. When you're dieting, you're saying, well, could I do that? What if I could do that? You're negotiating. Negotiation with yourself makes you weak. So the right state, you'll get the right behavior, you'll get the right story, and you'll find the right strategies. And so my focus is first there. Now I still do all three, but that's where I go first.
That's so good. It was funny because I was talking to some of our mutual friends, and one of them was like, you should ask him something that you need to change, like get a little vulnerable.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, God, he's seen all the things. I remember watching I Am Not Your Guru back in the day. And you're just like, a woman's life. I don't know what sort of crazy Tony Robbins magic, but you just like magicked her. And I thought about it. I'm a pretty disciplined individual in a lot of ways. But for instance, like small things, this time of year, like I will say, no, I'm definitely not having multiple glasses of red wine and that bread. And then I will do it. But in your mind, the formula, does it just go absolutes? So like, is my next step just, okay, Cody, no red wine ever, no bread, or I have to say it when I'm jumping on a trampoline, or I have to say it when I'm excited. Like, how do I tactically change that?
You need stronger reasons, honey. You don't have strong enough reasons to follow through. So you have reasons in the moment. It's like decision making. Why are most people supposed to make a decision and then they don't follow through? That used to fascinate me too. And what I began to realize is a couple things. Number one, most people don't make a lot of decisions. So they have kind of weak decision-making muscles. I don't know if you've ever been around somebody at dinner at a restaurant, and there's a person who's always the last one, and they still can't decide. And the waiter or waitress is about to lose it, and then they finally decide, right?
Yes, I never hire them. That's actually a
No,
great...
you never hire them in a million years. However, the reason they're not making a decision is they want to make the right decision always. They want to do the right thing. But perfection doesn't exist. It's just not there. So if you look at decision making, I remember I met General Norman Schwarzkopf, who did the original Desert Storm group, and I remember asking him. We were talking about leadership and what's the most important thing in leadership, and he said decision making. And I said, well, how do you make tough decisions? He goes, that's what you're paid for. Any idiot can make the easy decision. What makes you a leader is big decisions.
Yeah.
He said, but to get those big decisions done, you have to have strong enough reasons to follow through, or it won't happen. And he says, if you don't come up with the reasons, the decision doesn't last. And he told me a story I'll never forget. He said that he was a private working for a general. And the general was one of the most powerful. I think he was a 4-star general, a 3-star general at the Pentagon. And very influential man, to say the least. And Pentagon had wrestled with a decision, a strategic decision for the Pentagon as a whole for almost 10 years. And they had people that argued on both sides pretty powerfully, so much so that no one could decide. And so they set a date where they're going to finally make a decision no matter what, and the general's going to make it. And so Schwarzkopf was the private, and he had 5 other guys. Their job was to accumulate all this information from both sides, which he said literally filled almost half a room, and try to bring that down to like 6 binders. The general could go through and really understand both sides of the issue. Well, as they're doing the collation, trying to go through this, which they were completely behind, he said he was getting so scared. And then the general was called out with an emergency, and he had to leave and didn't come back until literally the night before the decision-making process. And so he has no preparatory materials. And he said, I didn't know what the hell to do. I gave the general stuff, but I knew he couldn't possibly do it. He couldn't resolve these. Should I cancel the meeting? He said, no, bring the meeting. He had the meeting. He said, okay, give me side number 1. He said, you have 20 minutes. Give me side number 2. You have 20 minutes. And when they're done, they stood up and he said, do that one. And they all went, that's general. And they saluted and left the room. But the story's interesting part was Schwarzkopf, as a private, is thinking, he couldn't possibly know what was the right decision to make that decision. This is insane. And he was so stressed about it that he worked up all his courage, knocked on the general's door, and said, permission to speak freely, sir. He goes, at ease. He goes, General, I know you couldn't possibly have viewed the materials. We couldn't even get you all the materials that are there. You just made a decision that determines the direction of the Pentagon. No one can make that decision for 10 years. You just did it. He goes, that's right. When put in command, take charge. He said, make a decision. He goes, but General, you didn't have enough information. He goes, there was too much information. He said, both sides have been arguing for 10 years. Here's what I know. Whatever decision I made, it'll be right, it'll be wrong. If it's wrong, we'll find out quicker. It won't take us 10 years and we can change our approach. If it's right, we'll be on the right track and we'll move forward immediately.
Wow.
Decisions need to be made. And I thought, what a great approach, right? So later I started studying and I was like, I think decisions have 3 parts. So when you go do yours, you decide not to drink or decide to drink only so many of these elements, drinks, right? A decision can feel a little bit like a war. I'm going to do this. I get myself to do this, all right, I'm going to do it, right? But it's a 3-part process, and that's what people don't understand. If you decide that's all you do, you're making a decision in the moment. You meant it when you made that decision to yourself, wouldn't you say?
Sure.
Yeah. So what happened? Later on, you're in a different environment, right? You've not taken the moment and pushed it into the future. What takes that moment, pushed it in the future is if while you're in that moment, you did something that commits you to follow through, where there are consequences if you didn't, significant consequences, right? And that's what the General does, right? So you look at this and go, okay, I say I'm going to do this, but do I got enough reasons? Is this really that important to me? Because if it's not, I want to bullshit myself. I'm not here to lie to myself. If I'm really going to do it, then here's my absolute commitment for the next 30 days. And this is what it costs me if it doesn't, right? And this is what I get. This is why I want to do it. So it's not just a moving away from approach. But I always tell people, never leave the site of making a decision without doing something that commits you to follow through later on. Because you're going to be in a different state again, right? And you're going to make a different decision in that different state at that party that's there. But there's a third step that most people never get to. It's resolve. So think about, what does it mean to you to decide? Tell me what it means to you to decide. What's that feeling when you decide?
It's forward momentum.
Okay.
It's a choice
what does it mean
on path.
to commit?
To not go back. It's there's an anti instead of a,
that's right.
a pro.
Now you put a line in the sand that's beyond just this moment. And you've taken what's in the moment, taken it forward. What does it mean to you to resolve?
Like, no matter what we're going to do, we're going to execute on this.
That's right. Resolve means it's already done. You say something's resolved, it's already done. It's done in you, so it's going to be done in the world. And what resolve brings an interesting emotion. Decision-making can be a little battle. Commitment can feel like having to use some force. But resolve brings peace. And then it's like, even if things don't go the way I want, even if it changes here or there, I've resolved this is how it is. So I want you to think of a decision you've made that you did keep your word on. That was a difficult decision. Because the alcohol one's not that difficult, right? I bet you've had some much more difficult decisions you've kept.
Definitely.
Can you tell me one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm divorced and remarried. So I remember when I was going through my divorce, or when I was going through my not so happy marriage the first time, I couldn't make a decision on doing it. And so I said, I'm going to put a date on a calendar. And by that date, I will have done the actions I think will, go to therapy, have lots of conversations, attempt to resolve it.
Yeah.
But if I can't, that will be my date. And by then I will tell him and we will commit.
So listen to what your language is even. You decided, and in that day you decided, you also committed. You committed to what had to happen in the future by a certain date, by a certain time, and what was going to occur.
Yeah.
Did you get to resolve?
I did.
When did resolve happen? Did it happen that day or later?
No, it happened that day.
So did you feel, what did you feel inside when you resolved it?
Peace.
Peace.
Sadness, but peace.
Yeah, I understand. Ending something is always sad, but
Yeah.
one of the rules of life that most people are upset about that they don't take, it's a given in life, is everything ends, right? Everything changes. But my view is, and something new begins, right? It's like the call. It's the call of adventure when, the hero's journey, it's there. So I think you either have to decide and commit, ideally resolve, or not kid yourself about it because it may not be that important to you.
Yeah, it's a great
It's
point.
like you might be doing, virtue signaling to yourself. It doesn't sound like you told anybody else, but that's people do that too. They don't just virtue signal stupidly on social media. They do it to themselves.
Yeah, it's fascinating you say that. My husband is a former Navy SEAL, and so he is so
He knows
committed
how
to
to
his
commit
word.
and resolve.
He does. And one thing that he's taught me lately that has helped the last couple of years is if we make a decision and we are committed to it, he does a thing that now I have a word for it, I guess, which is this idea of commitment and resolve. He'll say, like, for instance, we had something we wanted to do, and he was like, okay, well, what are you going to do if you don't hit that goal?
That's it.
And I said, I don't know. What do you want me to do? What's on the table? We put in cash and put it in. He was like, that's not big enough. And he's like, it not only has to be cash, which would bother you, but something that would bother you so much that you're not going to execute.
That's right.
And so he's like, so if you don't execute on this, we're going to write a check. And on the check, you're going to put $10,000 and you're going to say, Democratic Socialist Party of America. And if you don't do this, I'm sending the check with your name on it and you're going to be on the donor list. And I was like, oh no, now I'm really in it and I have to commit to this. And so now I have a framework. But it's, what's fascinating about you is these little small things in life aren't so small. They accumulate to everything in life. It's this compounding effect.
Decision making, I think, is one of the top 5 skills in life.
What are the other 4?
I wouldn't lock them in. I'd say managing your state is one of the most important. I think how to build relationships is certainly one of the most important. Your capacity to create a vision for your life is extremely important. Moving from being a manager to a creator is extremely important. Most people are managing their lives. They're making a living. They're not designing their life. Or, even in business, part of what helps you grow in business is when you stop becoming a manager. Managers always want to know techniques. And by the way, I have plenty of techniques I learned over the years, but I'm much more interested at this stage of my life in what is behind the technique that makes somebody follow through, right? Techniques are cute and they might work, but then eventually the technique becomes your new toy that will become your new limitation, right? So I think it's important to look for what's behind it all. If you shift what's behind it all, you shift everything, right? That's my focus.
Do you ever not keep promises to yourself now?
That's a great question. Yes, there's one that I've not kept to myself. To be honest, it's the only one I can think of. I don't know that I promised myself, honestly, that's the truth. And that is, I'd slow my schedule down.
You're not keeping that. I know that for a fact.
No, you can tell by my voice. No, I've not kept that promise. But honestly, it's like, I get a phone call last night from a dear friend of mine, and he's got a friend that's suicidal in the middle of the night. And it's like, I get these calls every day. Somebody's got, cancer, somebody's got whatever. And I have such a database of businesses and relationships, in the health area and the relationship area and the business area and the finance area and the emotional well-being area that I find myself called. And so then I end up being up for 2.5 hours to help this stranger not do those things. And so, but what my wife and I are going to have a meeting this next week, and I'm going to have to take it from decide to commit to resolve, because I think I decided, but I didn't really commit and resolve because I'm so called.
Yeah.
That's the thing too. It's like people have different ways of motivating themselves. I've never been a motivator. I don't even like the term. Motivation is a good thing. It's like a warm bath or shower. You should probably have one every day, but it's not enough, right? You need strategy. You need follow through. But what I'm really interested in is like, what's deeper than that? What's the inner drive in that? And when I look around at what's happening in people's lives, and I say, what? You can think of it as this way. You can think of there's like, let's say, pull motivation and push motivation. Push is what most people use. I'm going to push myself through and I'm going to make this happen. Well, that takes enormous, I would say, inner strength. And you clearly have that. I clearly have that, inner drive. But everybody's only got so much of that, right? What's unlimited is pull motivation, pull drive. That's something you care about more than yourself, so much more than yourself, that it's not effortful. It gives you an energy that's also almost feels superhuman to other people. And it's because this is what you're made for. And when you find that, it's been said before, the 2 most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you discover what you're born for, right? I know what I'm born for. And so changing that in my life and saying, I'm not going to do that, I have to find somewhere in between the two. I have to find what I am willing to commit to in that process. Well, that's interesting. My first response in my head was, no, of course I keep my word to myself through everything. And probably still is true, because my word to myself is I will always show up when it matters most for people.
Wow. Yeah, you almost have like a higher priority than you've even realized above the sub priority.
Yeah.
Well, it's so timely because you're having an event in January, and I really wanted to I was going to go to your last event, and we're in the mix of all this fertility stuff. And so
I understand.
It's one of the first times where I haven't been able to keep my word as often as I'm used to other people. And it's out of my control for the first time.
I understand.
Owning a business is incredible until a slip-on site or a pissed-off client or a tiny mistake turns into a very expensive problem. If you're not covered, that can actually wipe out months, even years of work. That's why smart owners use Next Insurance. It's coverage built specifically for small businesses, all online, all instant. So no paperwork, no waiting, no corporate runaround nonsense. Whether you run a cleaning crew, a fitness studio, or a business you bought on Main Street, Next keeps you protected so you can keep building. Taking risk is part of the game. Being protected is how you win it. Head to nextinsurance.com/Codie and check them out. I love the idea of this event because, new year, new you. There are all these things around this time of year.
Yes.
But we don't actually keep our promises to ourselves for the most part. And one of the ways that I, in the beginning, maybe thought of you was like, oh, it's positive thinking. We have to positive think. And that is actually the opposite.
No, I don't even believe him. I don't believe in negative thinking. It doesn't help you. I believe you need to find what's true. And I don't believe you should go to your garden and there's weeds there, so you chant, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. It's like, no, reach down and grab the weeds, right? You got to see what's real. You got to see it as is, but also not see it worse than it is. Most people see it worse than it is because they're afraid of failing, so then they don't try, right? And then you got to see it better than it is because without a vision, people perish, right? You have to have a vision, and then you got to make it that way, and that's where the strategy comes in, right? So that's how I look at it. But no, I've never been into positive thinking per se. When they did the Secret, they came to me to be part of Secret. I said, I will not participate in a million years. This is bullshit. They said, you're saying the law of attraction is bullshit? I said, no, law of attraction is real. It's one of dozens of laws. And you're saying that's the whole game? And I remember this guy was saying, yeah, but I was coming here to talk with you about this. And he said, and I was running late and I thought green, green, green. And I got all green lights. I said, well, what's going to happen when you're coming to see me and you get all red lights? You're going to say you're thinking about it? Are you telling me some person who was in Alcatraz was there, or not Alcatraz, but in Germany, in a concentration camp, that they were just a negative thinker? Sometimes not getting what you want is what the universe or God wants for you. So you develop lessons, skills, muscles, strengths, caring that you wouldn't have had without it. So it's not just that. There's other things like capabilities. There's like skill sets. You can't do that. So I was revolted against that. And I watched it go like this and of course crash, because everybody wants the oversimplistic view of life, but they won't get you results. Just thinking positive is not going to do it. Thinking negative will certainly hurt your life, but that's not the full gig.
No matter how bad I want it, if I go try to one-on-one you on that basketball court, I don't think I'm winning. You got like just a tiny few inches more than I do. But it's important because these days I live in Austin, Texas, and there is so much, if you think it, you will get it. And if you rub this crystal, I brought a crystal, I like a crystal, but I still don't think it's going to fix everything for me.
No. I mean, listen, I think thoughts are real, and whatever you think about consistently, you tend to manifest in your life. But there are other things beyond just that one force of what you want. And to think otherwise is think you're the center of the universe, which is absurd to me, right? If that was true, why wouldn't we just get whatever we want immediately? Well, because you'd be spoiled rotten, you wouldn't care about anything or anyone. I mean, think about it. When you were born, what'd you have to do to be loved?
Nothing. Scream, yell, go to the bathroom in your pants, throw up all over your mom or your dad. You're still loved, right? But there was a day when that stopped. And that's the day that fear entered your body. That's the day you try to figure out what to do. So because to survive, you need love. Love is where someone puts their needs aside for yours, right? And as humans, we're like different than other animals. Some animals, there's egg, you crack, and you never see your mother and father, but you have some competitive advantage. You have horns, you have teeth, you have camouflage, right? Our competitive advantage is love. And so our capacity to feel that caring allows us to connect, allows us to work with others, allows us to expand beyond what other people can possibly do. And so I look at it and say, okay, if this is our capacity, why is it that we have this unconditional love in the beginning and that everybody pursues it for the rest of their life and rarely feels it? Because if you're unconditional love forever, you'd never grow. You never bring anything to the world. It would all be about me, 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 just like ridiculous. So you have to grow up and realize life's not about you, it's about we. And the more you contribute, the better. Business is a spiritual game. This is a perfect example. Every religion on earth has some version of love thy neighbor like thyself. Different versions of it, but a version of that principle within it, right? Karma, whatever you want to call it. When you fall in love with your client, not just fall in love with your customer, or your product or service, that's going to change. Fall in love with your client and you're trying to do everything you can to meet their needs. And you turn them into a raving fan and you love on them and you think constantly about meeting their needs like a mom does their kid, or like a best friend does for somebody they really care about, you're going to grow in business. You're going to grow anything that you do. But we're not meant to just have unconditional love, because then we wouldn't grow, right? We need to grow. We need to expand. And so otherwise, all these stupid thoughts like, oh, I'm just going to think and it's going to happen to be there. Plus, if you went to Vegas, what's the worst thing to happen if you go to Vegas? Well, in this case, maybe lose all your money.
No, the worst thing that can happen is win.
Oh, interesting. Of course.
Yes.
Then you think you're skilled.
Steve Wynn's a good friend of mine. He built most of Las Vegas.
So he
I was with
disagrees.
him one day, and this guy won a $10 million jackpot. And Steve is a very tight guy in finance, right? Very tight guy. Like he knows what every one of his retailers is doing, and he wants the maximum dollar for each one. And Louis Vuitton wasn't paying him enough. He'd get very upset. I'm like, you're doing quite fine, right? He says, no, I want to. But when a person won, I saw none of that. So I finally said, Steve, usually you're pretty uptight about something like that. He goes, no, Tony, don't you know? Do you see all the people around him? See all the pictures? That guy will come back for the rest of his life, but so all these other people. He goes, the odds are my odds. He goes, that makes me money. I'm in it for the long game. That's how it works here. But if you went to Vegas and let's say you pulled one of those Warren bandits and you get the jackpot, what was your response going to be?
Sweet.
Awesome. Yeah. Second time.
Probably less excited, but still excited.
100 times every time you get the same victory. Now it's called a job.
That's fascinating.
Right? So we need jackpots in our life to make us feel alive. If you got everything you wanted every moment, you'd be bored out of your mind.
It's such a good point. What's interesting about you is, I think a lot of people struggle with people pleasing, right? And, maybe they try to do things that other people think will make them likable. Yep. You seem to do the opposite. Like you are so comfortable pushing buttons, saying hard truths, and at least what I've seen publicly, kind of pushing people out of their comfort zone. And I know
I don't do that till they first know how much I care. I earned that right. They see that. I don't just come in like a jerk and go this, because
I really
you come
off that way. But I think that's scary for people, even though
scary.
I do believe a lot of times that's what we need. We need like Chris, my husband, calls it a benevolent bully, somebody to push you like you need it.
Yeah.
Have you always been like that? Or how did you learn to push people the way they needed to?
No, I was more of a pleaser growing up. Everyone has a dominant force in their life. My mom was the dominant force. And she was, I had 4 different fathers, so she was the dominant force, as you might guess. She was quite a force of nature, got rid of them one after another. And I learned to please her, or I was quite physical with her. And I was 5'1" in high school. And then even when I grew 10 inches in a year, I learned to bend my hair down so she could grab my hair and smack me against the wall. She was a beautiful woman. I don't want to give you the wrong impression. She was as loving as you could be, but she abused, alcohol and prescription drugs. And when you put those two together, you become a different personality. So I had to work out in my head, how do you deal with someone whose love you crave the most, who's trying to harm you, but loves you, And so rather than go through the whole victim bullshit, there's not any part of me that's ever been a victim. It's like, okay, she's wired with pain and I got to figure out how to, basically I became a practical psychologist because of her. I had to figure out how to manage her states, her emotions, so I could protect my younger brother, 5 years younger, the younger sister, 7 years younger. And I got really good at it, as I had to be. But then also with women in my life and relationship, in the beginning, I was all pleasing all the time, which is a woman I'm sure you know. It's probably why you married a Navy SEAL. Having a pleaser doesn't please a woman.
No.
Men are confused by that. They're like, she wants me to please him. Yes, she wants to be pleased, but she doesn't want you to be a pleaser. What the F does that mean, right? So I learned that lesson. But even during that time, when I stood up to serve someone, I'm there to serve someone. Yeah. So if I will, at the end of an intervention, you saw, I'm not your guru. There was a moment there where I was working with a young woman who was part of this cult where they raped children and said it was for God. And, she was in such a horrible place. And so I did this work and it's like, I feel like God comes through me in those moments. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but as you say, it looks like magic and it's different every time. And so afterwards, this group pushed on the door. And I was like, after those things are done, very often I can't show any emotion then because I'm there with them. If I fully feel what they're feeling, I can't help them, but I am feeling it inside. I put it in a box. And then I go to the back room there and then I just start bawling for what this woman has been through. I'm just even thinking now it makes me emotional thinking about it. And the guys that were doing the show said, no, we had to have direct access. And they opened the doors and you see me there crying. And, but it's because, this is what I'm made for. It's like, I hate suffering. I hate to see anyone suffer. And so I am unbelievably committed to end suffering any way I can. But I also know my own suffering will not help that person who's suffering. So I need a call to a higher part of them. And I can do it in multiple ways. I can do it with humor, I can do it with intensity, I can do it with fun, I can do it being weird, but I will find the way to get them there. And it's different every time. And that's my art. That's where you can call it the universe. I call it God comes through you because you're trying to serve something more than yourself. You get different insights. If you're just trying to serve yourself, you get a certain level of insight. If you've got a family you care about, you're You're trying to serve your family, you get a different level of insight, trying to serve, a community, the world. I don't mean virtue signaling bullshit. I mean, like, what's in your heart. The level of insights that are given to me that I can't possibly know about a person while they're standing there. Like, people think there's a script backstage, or people come up, even the guys who are filming, so they win it. Do you have an earpiece or something? And I was like, what are you talking about? They came and literally checked to see if I had an earpiece. Like, how could you know that about her? And I was like, I just knew, I just knew immediately. So the emotion I go through is enormous. It's not like I'm just cold and this is how it is. And usually by the end of it, the person feels very loved and very taken care of. They have the breakthrough that they're looking for. But, I had this conversation with Oprah one day. Women are so abused by our society. When I say abused, I don't want to just be derogatory, but, women are put in this image of who they're supposed to look like, be like, act like. And women to me are unbelievable. You're about to be a mom. There's another part of you that'll come alive when you're a mom. It's unbelievable what women do. How their kids don't know it and don't understand it is mind-boggling to me. But to be a mom and a business person and to be a lover and to be a husband or a wife and all those things at one time, it takes just unbelievable energy, strength, and so forth. And when I see what happens with women generalizing about themselves, like I'm just a homemaker or something, makes me crazy. But the one thing women have, if a woman isn't super attractive, is they have support. Men don't have that. Men don't go share their feelings. We don't go talk about our relationships, right? I remember we were having a program in Mexico, and this woman was saying, you were with your friend and, he got divorced and you don't know if he's dating? He says, we played golf. And she goes, and it didn't come up? He goes, how would it come up? And she was just like stunned because she thinks how a woman would think versus how a man's brain would think, right? And so I say this because I was telling Oprah, I said, one of the beautiful things about the sisterhood, if a woman's really attractive, sometimes there's backbiting and there's the opposite. There's not the support. There's just tremendous support. Women share their problems. Men don't share their problems. Men's job is to solve a problem. And then you get with a woman in your life and you want to solve it for them. In a man's world, the more you solve problems, the more you move up the hierarchy of being a man. In a woman's world, no, you share your problems so you can connect and feel for the person, right? And you want to stay with it and so forth. So what happens with that is it's actually good for a feeling of support, but it does not create breakthroughs. Because women will support other women in terrible beliefs, terrible states, they have a terrible relationship, and they talk to two other women who have a terrible relationship about what they should do in the relationship, and it's all him. It's no matter how thin you slice it, there's two sides. There's him and there's you, right? Yep. And so I was doing an event one time for 5,000 women at Radio Music Hall for Oprah. It was all women. I never heard that high a pitch of sounds in my entire life in one room. And she said, okay, well, I want you to do an intervention like this. I said, well, Oprah, interventions can take 15 minutes. They can take an hour. I go and tell, it can take 2 hours. She goes, well, we don't have that. I said, I know, and you're doing this program live. She goes, well, I think you could do it in the timeline. And I said, okay, but I said, I also have to be willing to do whatever it takes. She goes, of course. And I already had this conversation with her about, you can't support women just in their limitations. If you really care about them, you got to call truth 100%. With them. You can still be supportive. And so this woman stands up and she talks about how she's lost her business because of 9/11, and she's not been able to build it because of her husband and her kids. And she's 110 pounds overweight. It's because they all demand something from her every moment. Now, I'm a lover of women. Like, I think women are, no man on this planet got here without a woman. I mean, through women who risk their life for you to be here. That's my core belief about women. I hold women like this. But this is bullshit, right? I got plenty of friends that had, in the building 9/11, their business didn't go under. So it's not 9/11 that did it, right? And your husband didn't make you 110 pounds overweight, nor did your children. And so everything she's saying is a lie. And the women around her are like, ooh, I'm surrounded by 5,000 women. I go, F it, I can't do this. I can't not do this. I said, now, what you just told me is total, absolute bullshit. And the whole room, it was like shock. And then there's sounds, and I'm like, I'm not being mean. But if you want transformation, if you want to change your life, you cannot do it by blaming everybody else for what you've done. 9/11 is a horrific thing. I'm sure it massively interrupted your business. But she wasn't even in the building. She wasn't even close to the building. I said, this is not why your business went under. You're making excuses. And I'm saying this because I care. Excuses will only hurt you. And right now, you don't have a relationship with your husband, clearly, by the way you're talking about. You don't even have a relationship with your kids. And that's another reason why you're probably 110 pounds overweight. You're bearing your emotion with food, right? And then all of a sudden there started to be some sounds. And then Oprah says, and she's behind me about, like 50 yards. It's a giant building, right? She goes, but Tony, to be fair. And I snapped back and I looked at her like this. I'll never forget, because I was in state. When I'm in state, you don't break my state, right? And she goes, oh, I'm doing that thing, aren't I? And I said, yes, you're doing that thing, right? So I had to go to a break, and I just kept working with her. By the time I was done, I brought her back and got her in a great place. And a year later, she was on Dr. Oz. She lost 115 pounds. She had a relationship back. She'd restarted a new business, right? So sometimes you got to do what's uncomfortable. And so, yes, I'm willing to do that to have someone's life change, because otherwise you're just making yourself feel good. I can make myself feel good and her feel good and go, gosh, that's so horrible. I understand, and all those things. But F that. If you stood up, my belief is if you stand up in my room, something's caused you to stand up. Some part of you wants transformation, or you wouldn't be in my presence. And it's going to happen.
God, it's so true. I think that's one of the saddest things about what happened with sort of the PC-ness of society today, is that so many people feel like they can't say the thing that might actually help because it might hurt somebody's feelings.
Where did we get up this thing that you're not supposed to offend anybody? Here's a question for you. Can people be offended by anything if they want to be?
Yes, but I don't think that should change what I do because of it.
No, but I'm just saying, so anyone you can, who said, where do we come up with this new magical rule? You're not supposed to offend anybody. If you're not going to offend anybody, you're not going to have any impact. I think was it Emerson who said, be nothing, do nothing, say nothing, and create nothing. That's how you can be sure you're never attacked, right? I'm not willing to do that. I've got a purpose. And of course, some people are not going to understand it. But people in my seminars do. That's why they're still there 12 hours later. When they wouldn't sit for a 3-hour movie, they won't get up to go to the bathroom because they're watching real life as it's happening. It's more dramatic than anything you could write in a script because it's real. Because even today, reality television is bullshit. It's made up, right? People know it's fake. You feel when something's real. And when something's real, you can relate to it. And it calls to some part of you to be more real. And when we're vulnerable and we're real, we can change anything. But when we try to soften it, use all the language, pretty good, it's okay, all that kind of stuff. Those softeners keep you from getting to the place where you could actually have a transformation.
It's so true. Yeah, I got in trouble on the internet a few weeks ago because I said, I don't think you should cry in business meetings just because you can't express yourself fully. Like, I think if you need to self-regulate, like you could step out, whatever, but I don't think that you should have a belief that it will help you and it is totally fine if you cry in business meetings. That is just not our society.
There's no crying in baseball.
Yeah, there's just not. And it's happened to me a few times. And whatever. If you cry, I'm not going to do you. I don't think it's going to help your career. But
you didn't tell them they couldn't cry, right? You just said that I don't think it'll help you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you got a tag for that, of course.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, I want to play like a couple little games. One is, I hear that you like this pattern interrupt exercise. And this gives me anxiety to even ask you these questions. But like, the idea is we give you a series of negative patterns, and then you say how you would break free from them. And what I find fascinating about you is like, you kind of just in the moment already know the thing to say.
Adapt it to the person. Right. It has to be like, I need to know what's going on, but I'll give you some general things if you want. But
okay, well, let me give you some examples.
What would be a pattern up for you versus me versus another person is different based on your model of the world, right?
Interesting.
So it's like, what based on what you believe, and I figure that out very quickly when I'm doing an intervention with someone. And so I'll figure out what it is. If I know, for example, you value significance the most, then I might show you how by doing whatever it's costing you the significance, and I'll have leverage there. If you're driven by love, then I will use love as the metaphor. If you're driven by certainty, then I'll show you how it'll take away your certainty if you keep doing this, right? So I'm looking for leverage. It's not just breaking a pattern. That's like a stupid technique, that won't last. It has to be tied to something there's an inner drive about. So we all have 6 needs, human needs. Certainty, everybody has it. It's a survival need because certainty can be comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, if you're in pain regularly, regular pain means damage, regular damage equals death. So it's the base need for human beings. But if you're certain all the time, you're bored silly, so you need uncertainty, right? You need variety, you need surprise. We need significance. Our culture way overvalues significance today because of social media.
That's
like people, put on filters and pretend they're different than they are. One of my buddies has his own gym, and he told me this the other day, I couldn't even believe it. He said, on a daily basis, women and sometimes men come in who are, influencers because he's got a great gym. They lay out all the equipment, they take all these pictures, and they leave. They don't work out a single ounce. When you're 27 to 32, you have to be an idiot to not be fit, right? I mean, it's like decent genetics and you can be fit, right? So, but they're making money off of it. They don't do anything. It's just about looking good, right? And then using their looking good to try to make money. So, I mean, that's going to wear off for them, unfortunately, at some stage in their life, right? So it's like significance is overvalued. The need for connection and love is the deepest need that people have. But most people want certain love. And so they try to control the love and kills it. Or they want significant love. Like it's got to be the most significant thing. And then they start to promote who they are more than they are because they think that's what's necessary and they're not truthful, right? And then we need to grow, we need to contribute. Those are the spiritual needs. If you don't grow, your relationship's not growing. If your business is not growing, it's dying. That's the law of life. Everything grows or dies. But also when you grow, then you have something to give. What makes people have a meaningful life is to feel like there's something beyond yourself. Because meeting your own basic needs, any idiot can do. You can lie to yourself and do that. You can work just 12-hour days and do that. There's a million ways you can meet those basic needs of certainty and uncertainty and significance and connection, at least, not so much love. But when I look at people, I try to see what's driving them, and then I know better which pattern will work. But go ahead and give me your list, and I'll just give you some simplistic responses.
Can you tell right away after meeting somebody what their one of the six is?
6 needs. I look to see what are their top 2.
And what if you know nothing about them?
I ask questions along the way very quickly.
You ask a lot of questions all the time.
One person counted one time. I had a woman who was suicidal, and a guy in the back who was a trainer was writing down. I asked 167 questions before I made one statement.
Whoa, fascinating. So you ask questions to figure it out. What about, you have a lot of businesses now, and can you tell immediately if somebody is somebody you should partner with or not?
No, I can't tell immediately. I can get seduced because people put on their best behavior. They're going on a date, right? So I look at it this way. If I'm going to evaluate somebody, I have 3 questions. Same as what you would have in your business or on a date. Can they do the job? If I'm interviewing them in one of my companies, by the time it gets to me, of course they can do the job, or I wouldn't be interviewing them, right? Or if you were dating, can they do the job? If you've been dating them 6 months, yeah, they can do it. The more important question is, can they do that job well long-term, right? Will they keep doing a great job? Because everyone does a great job in the beginning, right? And what determines that is, are their goals in alignment with the job, right? So I remember years ago, we had a woman that worked for us for 5 years as our personal assistant, and we were traveling the world, and we were pretty 24/7, and you become part of our family, right? And we love her and still do. She's still a close member of our family, but she fell in love with another of our employees and had a child, and so she needed to stay put. So we had to replace her, and so we went to the LA, because we were living in California at the time, Southern California, went to the LA Personal Assistants Association. We went through 5 hires in 5 months, and none of them were even close to good. And they all sounded so good to start with. And then one day I realized, we're fishing in the sewer. Who comes to LA to become a personal assistant? They don't come to become a personal assistant so they can help people, change the world, help a family. They come because I discovered they wanted my clientele. They want to talk to Quincy Jones in those days, or Anthony Hopkins, or Sly Stallone, or whoever it was that I was dealing with at the time. And they would treat them like gold and treat all my other clients and friends like they were dirt, right? Including my wife, so I get rid of them. So I realized, you've got to decide, where are you going to find somebody who's more aligned with the job and their nature and in their goals? Or I have a friend that I bumped into in Fiji one time. I have a resort in Fiji, and my wife and I were flying commercial in those days still. And you go through immigration, there's about 5 lines. I said, honey, why don't we go on this line here? It looks like it's fast. She goes, no, this line's faster. I said, look, honey, this one's actually fast. She goes, I think this one's faster. I said, fine, you go on that line, I'll go on this line. And we play these silly games. We're going to race. So we're going back and forth. I'm ahead, then she's ahead, back and forth. We're being silly. And this man hears my voice because I said that to my wife. And he goes, Tony. And I turn around and look. And it's this guy. I hadn't seen him in about 9 years. Brilliant businessman. And I said, what are you doing here? He goes, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm here with my wife. I have a resort here. I'm here to take a few weeks off. And he said, you have a resort here? And I said, yeah. I said, where are you going? He told me. I said, oh, too bad. We're the #1 resort. I teased him. I said, but what are you here for? He goes, I just got married. I said, again, it was his 3rd marriage. He goes, yeah. And I said, well, where's your bride? She was standing next to the stage, and they were doing the same thing we were doing. So, you're in the line. And I said, so how long have you known her? Because I'm talking to you, 7, 8 years? He goes, yeah, probably just a little bit of last time I saw her, probably 7 years. So, her 7 years, you're just now getting married. I said, how come? He goes, she wore me down. And I thought, oh, oof, oof. So then quickly I'm trying to change the conversation in my head. I'm like, well, are you going to have kids? He goes, Tony, I've had 2 families before this. I went through all of that. I lost all my money twice. We are not. I said, well, I looked across and this woman's like 29 years old and he's 48. I said, have you had a discussion about this? He goes, yes, that was my deal. If we get married, no kids. So I'm thinking, oh my God, he's in for a rough ride. So we get to the front, we introduce each other's spouses and they go off and I look at my wife and she looks at me and I go, they're in trouble. She goes, oh, you have no idea. I said, I think I do. What'd you learn? She told him, yeah, he thinks we're not going to have a kids, but we'll have within 2 years. And they did. And he got divorced for a third time. The problem is they didn't have their goals aligned. You don't have to have all your goals aligned, but on major issues like a child or not, it's got to be aligned or you're not going to sustain that relationship. So whether it's a business or whether I use business because it's easier to modulate in your head, right? Yep. Or a relationship, it's the critical element there. And then the last part is it the right team fit? In a business, you can relate to this, I'm sure, because all those businesses you run, you can have somebody who's a superstar, but they're the wrong team fit.
Oh, yeah.
They rub against everybody else. They piss everybody else off. And maybe they're like your top salesperson or your top marketing person, your top whatever. And you don't want to get rid of them because, man, they bring in a lot of revenue. But unless you do, they'll destroy your business. They've always said, it's not the person you fail to hire, it's the person you fail to fire that destroys your business. And so I'm a big believer in testing. Now, one of the things I do with partnerships today, just as a little clue, I shared this with Patrick Bet-David the other day, and I didn't realize how important he thought it was. And I was like, I guess it really is. He said, because I've been through so many rough ones. I said, I was too. But what I do is a full background check on everyone now. Yeah. And it saves me enormous amount. And I tell them up front, listen, I'm an open book. Please do a full background check, everything on me that you want to check. But I don't go into any partnerships without a full background check. It's not out of disrespect. It's out of respect so that we know. And if there's anything that you want to share with us or anything comes up that you think is inappropriate, you can share it with me. I'll give you the report and so forth. Well, the panic you see in some people's eyes, then the tightening in some people, and then the people like, no, it's totally fine. And then you get the report and then they never call you back. I have saved myself so much money, time, and energy by having that one investment in a long-term relationship up front.
So smart. I wish I would have done that earlier on. Although I think some of the biggest partnership mistakes I made were cheap in retrospect. Like they were painful, but you're like, I needed to lose that money. I needed to lose that relationship, or I would have kept having the same pattern.
Yeah, there's always a benefit. But as the years go by, you'll probably be less tolerant of having those things happen.
True. Well, it's heartbreaking, I think,
yes.
Because the partnerships, I remember one in particular. I thought we were buddies. I was like,
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm like, I met your baby. I thought we were best buds. And, there was one instance where they kind of targeted me. I was on the internet and I didn't realize there's this type of human that, I guess there are predators everywhere. Yeah. And so then I had to realize, where am I short in my analysis of people?
Yes.
And how did I sell myself on what I wanted instead of what was in front of me?
Most of my most important skills came from some early mistakes with people, one of which I had 2 partners, and I brought them on board and made a deal with them that was ridiculously good for them. But it was based still on some results. And they absolutely stole $758,000, $250 of the $758,000 put me in debt, $758,000. My company was doing $1 million. Wow. So not billions, $1 million, right? So it was like all the money I knew, and I'd been on the road 225 days, and everybody told me I have to go bankrupt. And I wanted to kill this guy. He fled to Mexico. And I realized, well, I'm chasing him in Mexico. My business is going to go under. So I went to Fiji, and I was so angry at him, but I said, no, who I'm most angry with is me, because how did I not see this, right? I don't care how good he presented. Was it about human behavior? I don't fully understand. And I was second day in Fiji in this sweaty little hut. And I went to sleep with that thought, just burning thought. I woke up the next morning and I wrote literally for 6 straight hours filled up 3 journals, all these distinctions I made. And I created my Date with Destiny program because I did it to me. That's my favorite program. It's the only seminar I've been through because I did it for me. Changed everything, rewired me so that, sometimes you have values that pull you apart. Like you want to please everybody and you want to be as successful as you can. You want to be totally honest. You want everybody to be totally happy, right? And I learned how to align my values so that I was pulled instead of having to push or being pulled in different directions. And it was the first time in my life I felt calm. And everybody around me was like, you're so different. It was like a rewiring for myself. So I agree with you. Sometimes your biggest mistakes, if you learn from them, are the most important ones. But I don't want to make the same mistakes. And so I look for systems to help with that as well.
You have a program coming up in January that's Time to Rise Summit. I've never been to this one before.
Yes.
I want to hear about it. And I also want to hear about how you prepare for these shows that you do, because I hear you obsessively prepare even to this day for the shows you put on. Is that true?
That's true. I believe in overloading my brain because I never know what's going to happen. Like, because I don't just do a rote talk, right? I sometimes I'll prepare everything and then I go out into the audience and I feel different things. I see people, I see where they are, and I have to adjust. Also, could you imagine, this will be my 49th year I'm about to begin. So I would be bored out of my brain if I was just doing the exact same. Now, I know there's certain things that work and what to do, but I have to be able to adapt to feel alive and do art. And art is something that's different every time. It's not the same. And it's also, it challenges me. So I feed my brain everything I can, and then I trust when I step on the stage, what'll be necessary is there.
How do you feed it? Like, what does that look like?
Well, for example, my Date with Destiny, I have people fill out about a 20-page interview report. There's 5,000 of them. And I read them for a week. Now, not everybody does it, by the way. Some people wait till the last minute, so or don't turn in at all. It's only your destiny. Don't worry about it, right? But what it gives me is the patterns in the room. I may not remember every name, every story, but I remember what the patterns are. And then when somebody stands up, even if it wasn't that person, I know if I can work with this person and help them transform, I could be affecting 50 or 100 people simultaneously, right? Yeah. That I consciously know about. That's how I load my brain. I also brainstorm out different examples or tools. I'm always coming up with something new in terms of insight or strategy. And then, but the event you're talking about is a really unique event. I started it because of COVID, because I was used to doing stadiums, right? And in 2020, the governor of California's team calls me up. I know him well, not a big fan.
Newsom called you?
Yeah, well, Newsom had his team call me, and then he wrote me directly. He was upset about me telling the world that he canceled the event, which he did, right? He said, "You're not making me look good," he said. I'm like,
you go, "That's you."
Like, you're a nice man. I like you personally, but I don't agree with your policies, right? This is ridiculous. So we had an event there for 14,000 people, and 2 weeks before, he sends out the message to me from his team and says, "You only put 100 people in the stadium, our new rules." I said, I said to his people, I said, "This is absurd. We can't put 100 people in a stadium. What are we going to do with the other, 13,000, 900 people?" And so I said, "Screw them. I'm going to move this thing to Vegas. They'll never shut down Vegas." Right? So 2 weeks before, we moved 14,000 people to Vegas, and they shut down Vegas. Right? So then I'm like, oh my God, I need to help these people. The time they need us most is during this time because everybody's depressed and upset and not know what's going to happen. So I said, okay, let's move it to Texas. Texas is its own country. I met the governor there. I don't know him personally really well, but I've met him. He says he's not going to shut down. 7 days before they shut down Vegas, we rented a big church, 14,000 people. So then I was like, I'm just relentless. I'm like, okay, well, they allow you to put 10 people in a movie theater. I said, okay, we'll do 1,400 movie theaters, local for people that don't have to travel. We'll have big screens, we'll have big sound, at least 10 people interacting with each other. Then they shut down the movie theaters. So I was like, okay, we're going to build a studio. And my CFO was like, "You're going to build a studio?" Like, we lost $100 million in 6 months because I didn't want to fire anybody. Because he kept saying we're 10 more days to stop the whatever the language was used in those days. And I was like, so I said, we can't wait. So I bought a building because I couldn't build it fast enough. 50-foot high ceilings. I built 22-foot high LED screens, made them 50 feet around me, and got 0.67 resolution, highest resolution in the world. I could see more in your face than I can even see now because you're this much bigger, right? And then I called Eric Yuan, the founder of Zoom, and said, 1,200 people is not going to work. I need 25,000 people. And he's a fan of mine, so he changed the tech so we could do it. And then I hired all these people. They all said, we can't do this in 9 weeks. And I said, well, then you're not working here. And I just kept going through people. We literally, the night before, were putting it all together. And we got up, we did this event, and we had people from all over the earth that participated. And I had 193 countries there. And we had over 25,000 people. Normally we'd have 15,000. So it was even more people because they could do it from different places in the world they wanted to. So then I was like, okay, I want to reach everybody. Let's do an event for free. Let's do one event for 3 days, not just an hour thing or two. Let's do like 2.5 hours a day for 3 days, enough to give people a real transformation. We'll do it right at the beginning of the year. It's kind of the comeback challenge, I called it back then. It's now called Time to Rise. And the comeback story is the best story of your life. You're down, everything's not working. That's what inspires people. This is the comeback time. And we put it together. We had 1 million people show up, 1,000,001. And now we've done it for 7 straight years. I think this will be the last year I'll do it. My schedule's so full. But I would do one last one. And we're going to do it for 3 days. And people from 193 countries attend, every country in the world. And we go for, like I say, 2.5 hours. And we help you not just make a New Year's resolution, which nobody keeps, right? Because they don't have a plan, they don't have a strategy or anything else. We help you create the breakthroughs that are necessary. And you become part of a really cool community because we have a Facebook community. And so in the middle of the night, I give people an assignment and they make these videos and you see people transforming from all over the earth, every age group, every direction, every country, every language. So I love that aspect of it. And there's no charge for it. Literally, it's free. So if people go to Time to Rise Summit, timetoRiseSummit.com, timetoRiseSummit.com, they can register for it and they can attend it. And you can think of it like going to a great 2.5-hour movie 3 days in a row, but instead of just being entertained, at the end of your life is really transformed. And then, we've done so much value for people, then some people decide they want to do other things with us, which is wonderful, but there's no requirement in any way, shape, or form. And it's been my way to give back. It was desperately needed during COVID. And then we just, kept the momentum for it for now.
Do I get claps at the event? The Tony Robbins claps? You do, don't you? Because it's my favorite part of the event. Well, I can't wait to come to this next one. I can't wait to see what this next evolution looks for.
Well, that's the thing about it. You don't have to come to it. It's digital. So you can do it from
my couch.
You can do it from your couch. You can do it from your office. And we start here at 10 in the morning. It's midnight in Sydney, Australia, for example. And they go each day all the way through it as well till 3 or 4 in the morning. So you'll be joined by people all over the earth and you'll have a cool community of people that all have something in common. They want more. They're not willing to settle.
Yeah.
If you want more for your life, it's time to rise and take more out of your life, you don't want to have next year be the same as last year, then you need some tools, you need some inspiration, you need some community, and you need some days where it's actually going to happen. Like you said, put it on the calendar and make it lock. So it's coming up January 29th through the 31st. January 29th through 31st. And if they go to timetoRiseSummit.com, get yourself signed up and lock it in your calendar. And I encourage people, bring your family, bring your friends or your coworkers at the office and do it. It'll be an experience you won't forget.
What do you do?
You wouldn't stick around in that relationship. So why do we take our monkey asses over to social?
The most important question is to ask in a conversation when you want to find the truth.
Oh, I definitely think it's why. In particular, politicians always ask the question twice.
I aspire to be this level of 50 Cent petty. Like, talk to me about what's happening there.
And the things that I've seen, I get it. Don't offend the wrong person. Yeah, that's one of the 48 laws of power. Do not offend the wrong person, because you might have an enemy for life.
So I kind of want to start with the fact that you've interviewed all of these legends for years. And I'm so curious, when you're interviewing big names, one of the most interesting parts for me listening to you is like, you don't let them go easy. Like, you got the hard questions almost always with like a lot of empathy, I think.
Nowadays.
Before
Nowadays, more empathy.
Interesting. Back in the day, you went at them?
I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just like, I didn't even look at them as humans, so to speak. I was just, I had a job to do, and I felt like I wanted to ask these questions as a curious person, right? And because, I always want to ask the questions that other people want to know about. And so it's just like, I was going to do that regardless. So I didn't even look at a person as a human. I know that sounds crazy, right? But I really didn't. It was just the subject of an interview, and I didn't think about this person is going to leave here and they might have a whole family or kids or, they're going to be thinking about, these things later on. Like, so it's just like, I just used to ask the question.
Now, do you think you're nicer? Are you softer?
Yeah, I would hope so. I don't, nicer, softer. Like those aren't negative words, right? Like a lot of people like to act like those are negative words in this business. But some of the nicest, most softest people are known as some of the, greatest interviewers ever. Like, personally, I like, the Larry Kings of the world, right? Because they just had an intellectual curiosity. I remember one time Larry King told me, God bless the dead, Larry King said, the most important question you can ask in an interview, Charlamagne, is why? And so that's a simple question, but it does help you to dig, very deep. But then I love the interview style of people like, Barbara Walters as well. It might have came off as intrusive and aggressive, but she knew that she had a job to do. And if that person is sitting in front of you as just a fan of culture, you have certain questions you're going to ask, but you also know that the people watching have questions they want you to ask. So I think it's a combination of both. So nice isn't a bad intention to approach, an interview with. Like, you can still be nice and still ask the hard-hitting questions.
What do you think the most important question is to ask in a conversation when you want to find the truth?
Oh, I definitely think it's why. And I definitely think when you're, interviewing people, in particular politicians, always ask the question twice. Because when you ask the question, they'll have a prepared answer for it, right? But then when you ask them again and say, but why? Now they really got an answer from the human aspect and not the politician. We sat around with our team and these are the answers we came up with to answer, this question. They really got to answer it. So I think, asking whatever the question is twice, but then when you ask it again, that's when you hit them with but why though?
Interesting. How much do you prep for an interview?
Oh, a lot.
What does that look like?
Like I said, I'm a fan of culture. And when I say culture, I don't just mean entertainment. I mean everything from sports to, politics, because politics is pop culture now, to, spiritualness, mindfulness, like all of these different things. So I'm usually already kind of well versed on whoever it is I'm sitting down talking to. But then, when you're sitting down to have an interview, you just want to see what's really going on, like in that moment, because usually, like, most people have something going on in that moment that you would want to talk about. If it's a author who has a book out, read their book. If it's a person who dropped a movie or a TV show, watch the movie, watch the TV show, just so you can be well versed on that individual. But I also like the sense of discovery that happens in interviews. So you don't want to be over prepped, right? Because sometimes you'll be talking to a person and you kind of already know where they're going with the conversation. So you might be saying things before they say it. So it's like sometimes I just like the sense of discovery of finding things out, in conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about it a lot. I mean, you have a giant audience. But I remember, like, it was just a few weeks ago when I realized, wow, one episode, if you consider shorts and YouTube too, is going to get a couple million people to watch it.
Yeah.
And if that means there's 1 million hours spent listening to this moment, it's kind of fucking scary.
I love it.
I better value it.
Yes.
What if we waste their time? What if we give them a bunch of bullshit?
But that's the thing. What you just said, Cody, is absolutely true. But I look at it also from another angle of, and I know this is going to sound dark, but what about when these people die? Like, literally, like over the last 15 years, I've had conversations with a lot of people who are no longer here. So when I sit down with people, that's what I think about. What if this is this person's last conversation ever? What if it's my last conversation ever? Like, but usually when you're talking to these people, yes, what I'm saying? But usually when you're talking to these individuals, these are moments in time that when, this person gets older, they might use for documentaries, or when this person passes away, they might use for documentaries. These are things that that other interviewers are going to reference when they sit down, to have conversations with these individuals. Like, yo, I saw you on, Codie Sanchez show. I saw you on Breakfast Club with Charlamagne, and you said this. Like, so that's another way that I approach those conversations as well.
That's interesting. You seem pretty obsessed with what you do. Are you?
I think you got to be. Yeah. I think you got to be obsessed with, whatever it is that you do to actually have success. Like, if you're not obsessed about something, like, if you're not obsessed about, being on these microphones, or if LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, God bless the day, Kobe, if they're not obsessed with what they do on the basketball court, if you're a public servant, if you're not obsessed, with, doing the bidding of the people in the streets, right? Like, if you're not obsessed with what it is that you do, then why are you doing it? Like, that's why they call it a passion, like that thing that you would do for free. Yes, I'm obsessed with communicating on these microphones, 100%, because I look at myself, like a public servant. And because I know that, I am serving the needs of the public every day, whether it's through making them laugh, whether it's through informing them, whether it's through, having somebody on that's going to say something beneficial to them, that's going to get them, on a path of righteousness with spirituality, or, decide to start going to therapy because, we having conversations about mental health, whatever it is, you got to be obsessed with what it is that you do.
How did you figure out what you were obsessed with, or how did you find this path? I think so many people, and a lot of people listening, they say that like, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or yeah, maybe I want to have a podcast, or is that just mimetic desire? Like, how does somebody who's totally lost and not sure what they're obsessed in, is there a trick to find what you could become obsessed with?
Man, that is an amazing question. It's a layered question because I can only speak for me, right? When I started off, I was born in 1978. Right. So I started doing radio back in 1998. Right. I started off as an intern in Charleston, South Carolina at Z93 Jams in 1998. And the reason I even, got there is because I was just trying to find something positive to do. Because of the way I was living in the street. And it's so funny that all of the things I would get in trouble for in school, being disruptive, talking too much, being the class clown, all of those things were actual qualities that when I got on the microphone helped me, right? So when I started off doing radio, I started off as an intern in 1998. I didn't get on the air until like 1999. I always got to salute my guy, Ron White. He texted me today and said, I think this is one of those times where you're ignoring me. Or you set a boundary with me. And he's right. But salute to my guy, Ron. But he's the first person to ever put me on air, right? Because I was an intern and I worked in the promotions department, so I would drive the van and put posters up and all of that stuff when the actual talent was on, doing their remotes. But then Ron was like, "Yo, have you ever thought about being on the air?" Right? And I'm like, "No, but what's up?" And so they started putting me on the air, and it was literally one of those things that I just knew this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I remember the moment I was in the radio station doing overnights. Overnights is, midnight to 6 a.m, where it just hit me like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I don't just want to be a local radio personality, doing the time and temperature, in a city. I want to be a super jock. The super jocks back then were the Tom Joyners, and the Doug Banks, God bless the dead. Salute to my guy, Russ Parr, Howard Stern, Angie Martinez, Wendy Williams. Those are the people you thought about when you thought about like the super jocks. And that's what I wanted to be. And I knew that I wanted to be that since 1999.
Wow. And
I want to add one more thing.
Get in there.
In my first book, Black Privilege, Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It, New York Times bestseller.
Great book. I read it.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
I have a chapter called Fuck Your Dreams. And the reason I say fuck your dreams is the name of the chapter, but the actual ideology is fuck your dreams if it's not your dream. A lot of times we see things working for other people and we say to ourselves, you know what, this is what I should be doing. But that's not what God has planned for you. Like God has something destined for you to unlock your greatness, but you got to figure out what that is. Like it's not just because you see everybody with a podcast don't mean that you should have a podcast. Just because you see these people on radio having success doesn't mean that you should, run to be a radio personality. Like, you should, even if you feel called to those spaces, number one, ask yourself why, right? What is your actual intention? If it's I want to make money and I want to be famous, that's not a real intention. What is your actual why to wanting to be in these spaces? And if you do feel called to be in these spaces, explore every aspect of the space. Like right now, we're recording this podcast in this studio. Somebody had to set up these cameras. Somebody had to set up these microphones, right? There's producers that are listening to us talk right now. There's all type of ways to be in this space, be in this business, and not be doing what you and I are doing right now. So that's what I would tell folks. If you do feel called to certain spaces in certain areas, doesn't mean that you're supposed to be Cody. Doesn't mean that you're supposed to be Charlamagne. Figure out what that means and why you're being called.
You talked about wanting to be a super jock, and let's just call that like one of the greatest of your profession. What do you think it takes to be the greatest in any profession? Like these days, there's a lot of people that'll say work-life balance matters a lot. Can you have work-life balance on your way up to greatness?
Yes. I might have answered that different some years ago. But yes, you can have work-life balance. I would actually tell people that, in this profession, work-life balance is actually what's probably going to make you have more success. Because for what we do, on these microphones, being able to communicate life in a way that connects with people is what kind of makes people gravitate towards us. So you got to live life in order to be able to do that, right? So when I'm, like I just came back from Cape Town, South Africa, and I was there throughout the whole holidays, and it's just interesting to watch people from other countries and how they gravitate towards somebody from another country just because they've been listening to them for so long. And one of the things that a lot of the people kept coming up to me saying was, thank you for embracing our continent the way that you do. Thank you for having, they were naming different, African talent that has been on the show, whether it's, people like DeVito or Burna Boy or, me being friends with my homegirl DJ Cuppy or Bo Nong. Like they were, my man Casper, I'm gonna mispronounce his last name, so I'm just gonna say Casper. Y'all know who I'm talking about. But they were coming up to me because of the way that I connect with them and how I'm able to communicate my experience as a Black American, appreciating what it is that they do, and bringing them on my platform and having a conversation. So it's just, I think that you got work-life balance matter. Like I'm able to go to South Africa and like experience that place for myself, and then now come back to America and talk to my listeners who may never have been to South Africa. I've had the pleasure of being, going to Johannesburg and Cape Town. And that might make more people want to go to Cape Town and Johannesburg just listening to me communicate my experiences there. So yeah, I think you gotta have work-life balance because you have to live life, right? And not even just in this profession, just in general. Like, do yourself a favor and go live some life. You got 168 hours in a week. You know how much time that is? Like 168 hours. You should have more than enough time to do what it is you got to do as far as your living in your career is concerned, but also go out there and just have some time for yourself and your family.
You know what I think we should talk about that we talked about before? We were talking about time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said a line like, we ought to be done at this time. I worry about not respecting people in time. I'm married to a military man. So he really associates lateness or extension with disrespect, which is kind of like a military mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm going to make sure we're out on time. And you had like a really interesting take on a book you had read in two different types of time.
Yeah, it's this book that I love to read. It's called The Big Leap. Like I read it, often. But it's written by Gay Hendricks, and he talks about Newtonian time and Einstein time. And Einstein time, if I'm saying it correctly, Einstein time is basically us realizing that we create time. Now, I do agree you should respect, people's time. But when we say things like, I don't have the time for that. Yes, you do. You just don't want to do it. And you're using time as the scapegoat. And the example he uses is like your kid might walk in and your kid might ask you to play. And you'd be like, I don't have time for that right now. But if your kid walked in and your kid was, cut and bleeding, you would stop everything and you would have the time to do whatever it is to make your child stop bleeding and stop feeling that pain. And so it's just the way we look at, what time is, instead of treating time like it's something that's out of our control, or we're a victim to it. No, you have all the time that you create.
So do you not say the words, I don't have time? Do you replace it with something?
That's why I constantly read books, the same book over and over, right? When I'm really into a book, I read it over and over because you want to constantly try to practice these things that you are learning in that book. But yeah, there's no such thing as not having time. The other saying that we always say is you make time for what you want to make time for. So instead of saying, I don't have time, I don't want to right now. Like, it's like somebody comes to me right now and is like, hey, man, I would really love if you would be at such and such, blah, blah, blah. Let me talk to my assistant so I can check my schedule and see if I can squeeze it. You don't really want to do it. Because things that you actually want to do, oh my God, I'm there. Like, let's figure it out. Like, then that's when you hit your team and like, this person wants me to do X, Y, and Z, be X, Y, and Z. Let's figure it out. And I think that's actually what it is. Instead of saying I don't have time, to be like, I don't want to. That's this year right here is all about the no.
Wow. Wow.
Like that's really a boundary that I think that we are just afraid to set a lot. Like we're afraid to tell people no, because all of us are people pleasers, you know, in different ways. And we all want that validation from other humans. And we hate telling other humans no, because we feel like if we tell them no, then they're not going to look at us the same, or they're not going to respect us the same, or they're not going to, you know, speak of us in a positive way. There's nothing wrong with telling somebody, no, I don't want to right now.
It's good that you say that, because I think, you know, if I was to just watch you on the internet, I might not think Charlemagne the people pleaser. That's probably not like one of the things I would label you, you know? And so I think people would say, no, he probably sets pretty firm boundaries. I bet he's really good at that. But is that even something that you've struggled with? Saying,
oh, absolutely. I've been a people pleaser for a long time. And I mean, people pleasing doesn't always look like just allowing people to do whatever it is they want, you know, you to do. Sometimes people pleasing looks like being overly aggressive in an interview. You know what I'm saying? You know, bombarding somebody with questions because you're worried about what the people watching are going to say about you. If you got a reputation, right, as this hard-hitting question asker, then you feel like you got to ask the hard-hitting questions. That's people pleasing. If you're doing it because you're worried about how other people are going to take it, how other people are going to consider it, how other people are going to view it, that is people pleasing.
It's interesting because you've been at this game a long time, and you've had, I don't know, people hating on you for things. You've had people loving on you for things. You've had some of the same people who used to love you hate you for things multiple times,
That's
you know?
right.
And so I'm curious to you, like, what do you do to stop caring about the haters? Like, what do you do when you're getting backlash? Everybody seems to be talking shit. Nobody likes you. How do you deal with that?
You just genuinely gotta not give a fuck. And I have two people in my life that gave me great pieces of advice that I always reference, even if, you know, at times I didn't always feel what they were saying. Like I didn't apply it, right? My man Cadillac Jack, who along with my guy G-Spin put together the Breakfast Club. Cadillac Jack told me early on in the Breakfast Club, I need you to remember the rule of 10. What's the rule of 10? The rule of 10 is 3 people gonna like you, 3 people not gonna like you, 4 people don't even know what the fuck's going on. And that is very true in life. Like that is just the absolute truth. Like we are so concerned about what everybody thinks, and we think everybody is paying attention to us. 4 people don't even know what the hell is going on. And then the 3 people that like you, they gonna like you no matter what. The 3 people that don't like you, they not gonna like you no matter what. But guess what? The algorithm don't know the difference. So when the 3 people that like you are talking about you, great. When the 3 people that don't like you are talking about you, great. Your name is just all throughout the algorithm. My daddy used to always say to me, you're never as good as they say you are, and you're never as bad as they say you are. That one, I've always understood. I've always been like right in the middle with that. And I mean, that's really just life, right? Like you have to be a very egotistical, narcissistic person to think that everybody likes you and to think that everybody's thinking about you, right? Like there is nobody on this planet, forget humans, there is nothing on this planet that everybody universally loves, not even God. Like, no, I want you to just think about that for a second. There is nothing, not even puppies, not ice cream, some of the purest things that you can think about. There is nothing on this planet that everybody universally loves. So for me, hey man, I'm just happy I make you feel something. I really genuinely feel that. I'm just happy I make you feel something, because I would rather be, thought of in some way than to not be thought about at all.
This is a secret nobody shares. I've done thousands of deals, but until now, I've never shared the most valuable 10% publicly because I want to buy these businesses myself. Then I realized that if you guys buy the businesses, I get to do the deals with you. So this year at Main Street Millionaire Live, it is your chance to see our insider strategies. I'll teach you how we find, buy, and scale a business step by step with the frameworks that I literally use to buy all these businesses. So if you want to go from an aspiring owner to someone actually running a profitable business, join me. I'll give you my blueprint, and maybe we end up doing deals together.
You had this conversation with 50 Cent before he put out the documentary, and you had you basically were like, prescient about what was happening in the world. And now, I mean, it's not really therapy for 50, but like watching him hold this level of like revenge am I a sick person that I watch it and like the memes that are like, I aspire to have this level of revenge that 50 Cent has.
Yeah.
I mean,
50 is a Cancer. I'm a Cancer. So I understand 50's level of petty.
You do?
I completely understand 50's level of petty. Plus I'm privy to like a lot of the whole backstory between him and somebody like Diddy. So I get it. Like people like, and it's funny, 50 is such an interesting person to me. And I've been having these conversations about 50 for years. I remember it started with, a long time ago, a couple of, executives in the business was talking to me about 50 and they was like, why does he always got to go after Urban Ja? Why can't he just finally, God bless the dead, why can't he just let it go? I'm like, he got shot 9 times. They've had fist fights. He got stabbed by them. Like, you wouldn't really let that go either. Like that, yeah, that's not something you could just, I don't even think a therapist could tell you just to let that go. And they were like, you know what? You're right. You know what I'm saying? So there's always, and I remember 50 said this one time. 50 was like, people always see when I punch, but they don't see when the person swung at me first. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying everything, he does is justified, because I really don't know. But from the things that I've seen, I get it. I completely, understand it. And that's why you gotta just be, don't offend the wrong person.
True.
Yeah, that's one of the 4-day laws of power. Do not offend the wrong person, because you might have an enemy for life.
I would never want to, like 50, just cut the podcast, edit it out.
And honestly, man, sometimes that is therapeutic within itself. Yeah. Like, just saying fuck a person. I don't fuck with you. Like, who says we have to fuck with people?
Yeah, I know.
Like, who says that? Like, we talk about that statement, money is the root of all evil. Who told us that we gotta forgive everybody? Who told us that, we gotta love everybody? Like, who said that? Like, nah, sometimes it's fuck this person, and it's fuck this person for life, and I don't fuck with them. And people be like, man, you exhausting too much energy on that individual. Says who? Yeah, right. And what if I want to exhaust this energy on this individual? Like, what if I want, to do exactly what it is that I'm doing, and it makes me happy to do it? Who am I to tell that person that they're wrong? And by the way, whatever energy comes back to you from doing that, he got to deal with that. And I think he's fully aware.
Yeah.
I think he's fully aware of it, and it does not bother him in any way, shape, or form. And there's a certain level of freedom that I admire. It is.
That smile when he does.
It's a certain, and by the way, I've had these conversations with him, like,
have you?
On air, off air, because I've been there. He's one of the most interesting, people to me, just because he's a Cancer, and there's a lot of things that I relate to.
And he seems like a smart motherfucker.
Oh, he's brilliant. Like, you don't come out of South Side Jamaica, Queens, and achieve the things that he's achieved. Achieved things, lost things, got him back triple, not even having success in multiple industries. That's what he don't get enough credit for. Yeah, he did his thing in music, but he went from an artist, started his own label, had successful artists under his label. Like, I'm glad we're having this conversation as well. But he's another person that I really look at, as a blueprint, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I remember, he says things that I remember. He said, I'm a general with G Unit, but I'm a soldier when I'm with Eminem and Dr. Dre. That right there is a jewel, because I hate when people say things like, yeah, but you work for a corporation, and I also own a lot of things on my as well. So what's the problem? Like, you can do both. And to watch him go from a talent, right, to starting his own record label, to having 4 or 5 successful artists, then having success with clothing, having success with a sneaker, then now in television and film. Do you know how hard that is?
Cannot imagine.
This guy has multiple franchises of various TV shows.
Yeah. And he lost it. That's the part that I think, like, coming back, like the mental fortitude to lose it, to be in bankruptcy, like you can make it. You can make it.
Absolutely.
But to lose it and get it back?
And to get it back.
Oof.
Yeah. And to and to remain himself throughout it all.
Yeah.
I actually think sometimes he does that just to remind himself, I'm still me. Let me jump. I be feeling that sometimes, like, let me find somebody to really go at it with right now, just to remind myself I'm still me. Like, I don't know. I got a lot of respect and
I'm going to clip this out. And every
admiration for
time
50.
somebody talks shit, I'm going to re-listen to you. And I'm going to remember this.
But listen,
This is good.
don't listen to me though, because I'm a Cancer and I'm still dealing with my own stuff
know,
too. So
but I can't hold revenge. Like, I think it's a little healthy to be able to keep like a little bit of that edge.
yeah,
and I like let it go.
And I like anti-heroes.
Oh yeah.
That's my thing too. I like
Do you have one? Do you have like a Diddy? Like 50 has one? Do you have one? That you're like, yeah, fuck that guy right now. I won't say his name, but Dan.
Yeah, but I already won.
Oh shoot! You
I
need a
won
new
several.
one.
I done won several. I've had a few, but I've won. So it's like it's not the same. You know what I mean? There's nobody I really want to like stomp on them while they. I don't. And probably, you know what? Probably I've never had one to that level. I probably never had one to that level. I've never had nobody try to like physically, like. Well, I'm lying. I have had people send people to physically harm me, but it's not like a punch in the face. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like a shooting or a stabbing or anything like that. So, yeah. But when I say I like anti-heroes, I like the Batmans of the world. I like the, Tony Starks, the Deadpools, the Wolverines. You know what I mean? I like those type of anti-heroes. I'm the guy that, I root for the villain in movies sometimes, and to me, like 50 is the ultimate hip hop anti-hero.
What about you? You've been doing Breakfast Club for many years now.
15.
You've been online for, how long have you been online before Breakfast? Now we're going to tell everybody how old you are. Basically.
No. Let me see. I mean, there's two different types. I'm old enough to remember that there's two different types of online, right?
What was the first type?
Because there
Radio?
was the MySpaces.
Oh, fuck. I remember that.
You know what I'm
Yeah, like
saying?
the square people. And you
That's
got
right.
upset. Uh-huh.
So there was the
I remember that.
MySpaces. There was the Black Planets, but those weren't necessarily social media. Like you might be in a forum or a chat room, I forgot what they used to call them, chat rooms or something back then. But yeah, I remember Twitter. I remember when I got on Twitter so early, I didn't even know that people replied to you. I remember when somebody said, you got to check your apps. I think it might have been Little Duval or somebody I was talking to. And I'm like, I don't really like Twitter, man. You just be on there talking to yourself. And he was like, what do you mean you be on there talking to yourself? I'm like, I post stuff, but it's just there. And he was like, man, you got to check your ads. I'm like, the ads? And then that's when you clicked on your ads and you started seeing everybody atting you. And you're like, oh,
But you're like,
okay.
I wish I never knew that existed.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it some days.
I stopped going on Twitter in like 2018, 2019. But we got on, I think I got on Twitter in like 07, 08 maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, that place is a little wild.
Oh, it's not good for my mental health in no way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But you got to know that though. We're all in verbally abusive relationships with our smartphones. Why would you go to a place where somebody's constantly telling you that you ain't shit? If you were married to a person like that, you wouldn't stick around in that relationship. If you were at a job and you had a boss talking to you like that, I don't think you would stick around in that relationship. So why do we do that with social media? Like, I'm not, forget just the block features and the unfollowing folks. I'd rather not even go over there. Like, I'm a stern believer in if somebody be like, hey man, why don't you come over to the house? Or, we having this party, or we having a cookout. Who all over there? If they say the wrong people and the wrong energy, you not going. So why do we take our monkey asses over to social media, especially Twitter? Like, I have no place, I have no desire to be over there.
That's really smart. A little social cleanse.
I have not been on this since 2018.
What about, like, you've probably changed a lot since 2018. Like, I imagine 15 years online. Are there some things that you have said before, like back in the day, you're like, this is true, I believe it with all of my being, and now, fuck, I was wrong.
I remember talking to Malcolm Gladwell one time, and Malcolm Gladwell said to me, there's a lot of things that I wrote in books like The Outliers that I don't necessarily believe anymore.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh my God, like that kind of threw me for a loop. But then I had to think to myself, like, just because he wrote it in that book and he has maybe evolved and learned a lot more information and it's taking him someplace else, doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to pick up that book right now and it's going to meet them where they are.
Do you think about your books that way? Like when I was going back through and I hadn't read one, I didn't realize you had multiple books. Mm-hmm. And so when when I went back and I was reading, so I had read Black Privilege. And then when I went through and I was looking at Get Honest or Die Lying.
Yep, that's my last one, my third one. Yep.
I didn't realize that you had such a focus on mental health. And I don't know why. I guess I had seen Breakfast Club and I'd thought of your persona a lot there. But I like asking you these questions because when I think about the person who's listening here, I'm always thinking about them, maybe a little less than the guest. Like, what does Charlemagne have that I feel like every human listening is just it's going to blow their mind this week and it's going to help their life somehow. And that's kind of how I think about you. It's like you have this amazing career, but it's mostly like, what do you got that they need? And when I think about your career in particular, there's a couple ways I want to go with it that I think could be really helpful with people. One, conversations, we're having less of them. You have them deeply. And even with people I don't know if you don't like them or not, but maybe you don't agree with everything. Maybe you sometimes don't like them. And I guess one of the questions I have for you is like, what do you do when you have a conversation with somebody you don't like or agree with?
You just agree to disagree. Like, I don't think, I don't know if there's too many people I've had conversations with who I don't like because I don't know them personally not to like them. Yeah, I may not like their ideologies. I may not like, some of their worldviews, but I don't know them personally to not like them. And I mean, that's what conversation is for. And just because you have a conversation with a person doesn't mean you're going to end up liking them at the end of the conversation. But I feel like as human beings, we should, respect each other enough to discuss. And even if we discuss and debate and, argue and, we might even get to yelling in an interview. But I think that's just what happens when you are having a real, healthy, honest conversation with somebody. So I think this is our job. Like, I'm a radio personality. I'm a podcast person. I'm a media personality, right? Just like you're a media personality. If I choose to invite you into my space and have a conversation with you, it is ridiculous to just then say, you know what, I'm going to slam dunk on this person. I'm inviting this person in my space just to slam dunk on them. If you get dunked on in the midst of the conversation, that's different. But I invited you for a conversation. So have the conversation and see where it goes.
Do you get a lot of comments online like, why are you having this person on?
All the time.
All the time. What do you say to the people who won't have a conversation with somebody? Like, what if somebody's listening right now, and this happens around the holidays, probably good timing for it. They're like, I'm not fucking going home because Aunt Becky loves insert one political party, and I don't want to talk to them.
I think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And the reason I think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world because, politics are very fleeting, right? In the next few years, hopefully, right, if we still have free and fair elections, they'll be electing, somebody else, and there'll be a lot of damage done because of the current administration, but the way people felt will kind of be a thing of the past, right? Maybe. Maya Angelou said that, people will forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, they'll never forget how you made them feel. So maybe people will forget about it. But man, I've been alive long enough to have seen how this goes, before. And I mean, that's your family member. Don't blame who's in the White House on you not wanting to talk to your family member. You never liked this person to begin with. Like, cut it out. Like, because if you could just cut me off or cut somebody off based on who they voted for, you never really liked that person. This goes back to what we were saying about time. Don't blame time for you not wanting to do something. You don't like this individual. You never really did. And now you feel like you got a valid excuse to not talk to that person anymore. And I feel like, when it comes to just us as media personalities, listen, I've seen media personalities, say, I don't know why, Charlemagne talks to these kind of people or why the Breakfast Club talks to these kind of people. They don't say that to anybody else but us. Like, they don't say that to Jake Tapper. Right? Historically, they didn't say that to people like, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, Oprah Winfrey. I grew up in the era of watching Donahue have the Grand Wizard of the KKK on. Yeah. Right? And I grew up in the era of, Donahue would host it's not just Donahue. Everybody would talk to people that they didn't necessarily agree with, right? Nobody said anything back then. So why is it such a thing now? And I would tell all of these media personalities, when you say things like, man, I would have never done that. That's why you're not me. That's just the reality of the situation. That's why you're not me. So don't ask yourself why you don't get the things that I get, per se. Yeah. Because you don't do the things that I do. I have no problem sitting down having conversations with people that I may not agree with. But that's just because of the great personalities that I saw before me. They were doing the same thing. They used to do specials where they would go talk to Charles Manson while he was in prison. They talked to Jeffrey Dahmer. He ate people. Like, and you're not going to talk to somebody just because they got a different
Republican.
A Republican? That's crazy. That's crazy to me. I'm also old enough to remember when people hated guys like George W. Bush. Now everybody loves George, but they love watching George Bush with Michelle Obama, and it's so cute, such a great relationship. I remember when y'all were calling George Bush the Antichrist.
That's true. Well, or if you go back to history, Democrats were actually Republicans. Republicans were actually Democrats. Like the whole party, they've changed back and forth.
They had different ideologies at the time, though. So
totally.
Yeah.
But it's kind of wild to see, what used to be a Democrat today was a Republican at one point, and vice versa. It's like we put these hard lines on it. But it's a really interesting point because you're right. I actually went to journalism school. I always wanted to be a journalist. I ended up in business and finance for all these other reasons. I guess we've come back. But I used to love Walter Cronkite for that reason.
Yeah. There was a time where you would want to get that interview. Like, we saw freaking Barbara Walters went and spoke to Fidel Castro. Like, those were the type of things that we constantly saw the greats do. So who are we to be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Nah, that's so if not you, who? And why not talk to that person and ask that person the questions that, the world may want to know?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about like the business side for a second. One, congratulations. Amazing news recently on a huge deal you did. It's so cool.
Thank you. Re-signed with iHeartMedia.
Yeah. And I think like, not even to get into details on that, but like, it's really cool to see somebody do an incredible deal and do a re-signing and have it go really public and have it be in this new age of media, which is, I think typically deals like that, you had to be with CNN or CNBC or some huge network. And now this is kind of you, you could move Breakfast Club, Charlemagne, anywhere, and you're the network now. So it's really cool to see. Congratulations.
Yeah. And even salute to iHeart. I've been with iHeart for 15 years, started off as a talent, then became a partner when I created the Black Effect Podcast Network, which is, by far the largest podcast network, for Black podcasts. I think right now we got like 50 to 60 podcasts but we wanted to create a space that was specifically for Black podcasters because that didn't exist. Like, I'm the type of person, I like to look around the marketplace and, see what's missing from the marketplace. And that was something that was missing to me. Yeah. I loved what Bill Simmons was doing with The Ringer. I loved, watching what they were doing with Smartless. I loved watching what they were doing with Gimlet. But I saw a lot of these Black creators who were doing two things, right? They were putting their podcast out, but it was like video first. So their videos were getting like tremendous views, but the audio wasn't necessarily reflecting that.
Yeah, that's hard to grow.
We all know that the money is in the audio.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, what if we created this network, got these individuals who already have these, podcasts, put us, all under one umbrella and use iHeart sales team to really, really pump their audio because iHeart is the biggest, conglomerate when it comes to audio. Nobody does audio better than iHeart. I'm not saying that because I work with them. I'm saying that because it's the truth, right? So radio, podcasting, nobody does audio better than iHeart. And man, if I could show y'all the data of some of these podcasts who had these big video numbers, but the audio numbers weren't necessarily matching the video, and how when they partnered with Black Effect and iHeart, how we were able to get those audio numbers booming to the point where we're at like 11 million, 12 million audio downloads a month. Wow. And that makes, Black Effect one of the biggest podcast networks out there. Like that's very rare air to be, have a network getting 11 million, 12 million audio downloads a month. And, things like that is what makes you a lot more valuable to, whatever company you're with.
What's interesting, I kind of want to talk about that for a second. I don't know about you, but I had a long period, and I'm thinking through it right now, but where I'm Latina and a chick, and it always bothered me when somebody would reach out to me and say like, hey, we want to talk to you. You're a female CEO. We'd love to have a female CEO come speak about XYZ. Or like, you're a Latina CEO. Come speak. And I kind of would be like, one, if it was female CEO, I'd be like, I don't know what my vagina has to do with it. Like I'm just in charge of this business, and I happen to have that anatomy, you know? And I remember I did write that in one email, and then one of my execs was like, maybe we could not do that. But I kind of like took it personal. I had a little chip on my shoulder. Maybe I have less of one now, but I'm curious for you, like when people say like, Charlemagne, Black CEO, come speak. Like, are you like, yeah, fuck yeah, because I represent all these people? Or are you like, who cares? I'm a CEO. I just happen to be Black. Like, how do you think about that?
That's a great question. I don't, when I pull up the Chick-fil-A, it don't bother me that, they specialize in chicken sandwiches. I'm pulling up to Chick-fil-A because they specialize in chicken sandwiches, or if I want to go to, pizza, if I want pizza that night, I'm not going to go to a burger spot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, for me, it don't bother me because we are unicorns, because we can't sit here and act like we don't understand the country that we live in. We live in the country called America. America is, a country that was founded on white supremacy. Like, just call it what it is, right? So like that is what people think of when they think of America. That's what they've always presented to us, right? Like a white man. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a problem being a quote unquote unicorn in this space. If you are a woman CEO who's done great things, hey, sadly, we live in a country that doesn't think women can do amazing things. Like, this is a country that, just gave women the right to vote in our lifetime, right? So how they kind of already perceive women. So when they look at you as a woman CEO, they're looking at you like, damn, I can't believe she did all. I can't believe she got that done. Why? Because you're a woman. Same thing with a Black person. Why? I can't believe that a Black person could achieve those kind of things because of all of the things that this country has thrown at us historically. So things like that do not bother me. If you want me to come out here and be the bearded woman at the circus, or like, I don't have no problem with that, because I feel like, by the time I sit down with you and have a conversation, you're going to say to yourself, I understand why that person is in the position that they're in.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think culture and race I don't think about it as much now because I'm like a little bit of a spreadsheet nerd. But, as I've gotten on the internet more, and then people, of course, they notice you. They're like, yeah, he's Black. And yeah, she's a chick. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that's part of the equation.
Yeah,
whatever.
You're stating obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, all right. But then I realized, man, actually, there was a bunch of stuff when I was growing up that we didn't actually do that I think hurt us monetarily and hurt, and by us, I guess I mean women or Latinos in this instance. Like when I was growing up, you know how they say you don't talk about sex, religion, politics?
Politics, yeah.
For Latinos, religion's cool. Jesus is all around. Like everybody can talk about Jesus. But you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about money. Like money's like, nobody talks about that as a Latino. And I think for that reason, it was harder for me to make money, like growing up, like, because I was like, no, we don't talk about it. It's not good. It's private. Rich people kind of suck because you had to be bad to get it. And so I had all these ingrained narratives. And I'm curious, and like in Black culture, is it similar at all? Can you talk about money in the same way? Are there like things that hold Black people back monetarily that you're like, why the fuck do we do that and don't do that anymore?
That's a great question. I don't like to answer questions on behalf of the whole Black race because Black people are not, monolithic. Yep. And, there's a lot of Black people who don't like me. So I don't want them to think that I'm speaking. Nope. I'm speaking for them. But from my perspective, yeah, a lot of conversations like financial literacy did not happen, in the Black community. Like at least in my community. I don't want to say in the Black community, at least in my circumference. Like, my father was definitely an entrepreneur, right? Like my father, he owned a fish market when I was young. So I would be there hanging out, working. My father also did construction. So he was an entrepreneur, even though he did work for a construction company for a period of time, but for the most part, all the money he made was, doing things independently. So that was always kind of my mindset, but nobody taught me about, taxes and, high yield savings accounts and stocks. Like I didn't learn about any of that stuff till I got in my late 30s, early 40s. I think the not talking about money thing is interesting though, because of course none of us wanted to be broke, right? That's what led, guys like me to start selling dope, right? Because, you don't want to be broke, but money was never my motivation, ever. A lot of the times, even when I started, selling dope, I was just doing that because the people around me were doing it. And, you would get clowned for being broke, but I never needed money to really get anything that y'all got. Like a lot of times these guys are, trying to get money to impress women and things like that. I wasn't the best looking, but I could hold a really good conversation. I could make you laugh. Like they,
check.
You know what I mean? There was a lot. The girls that y'all was, trying to get, I was getting just being my natural broke self, right? So it's like money was never my motivation. What was my motivation was wanting to realize my full potential as a person on this planet.
Even when you were younger, you were
even
never
when I was
scared
younger.
about being broke or not having money? That wasn't part of your equation. Were you religious when you were young?
Yeah, I grew up, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness. My mother was a Jehovah's Witness. My grandmother was a Baptist. My father was a Jehovah's Witness too till he got this fellowship. And then, he started studying Islam. So I was getting hit from all different angles. I had my grandmother who was a Baptist. My mother was a Jehovah's Witness. So, my father who was studying Islam. So I was reading Watchtowers, Awakes, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Like I had it all. But there was different things that motivated me to want to be successful. Like when I heard Biggie Smalls say, being broke at 30 give a brother the chills. Like, right? Or when TLC made No Scrubs. I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy sitting in his best friend's ride, on the passenger side, trying to holler at me. Or when Outkast and Goody Mob made, I want to get up. You need to get up, get out and get something. Don't let the days of your life pass by. You need to get up, get out and get something. Don't spend all your days getting high because, you and I got to do for you and I. When you hear that, that's not necessarily about money. That's just about, brother, get up and do something with your life, figure it out. And even back then, man, I had no problem. I thought about going in the military. There was a time I wanted to work at UPS because, I had an uncle who worked at UPS. Like, and same thing with the military. I had my mother's first cousin, his name was Bruce. He was in the military. So I was just looking at all of these different things that could potentially get me off this dirt road in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. It wasn't necessarily always entertainment. Like I had no problem living what people call the so-called American dream. Like you just figure out something, that can make you some money to be able to afford a nice place to stay, have some food on the table. And if you want to have a family one day, you can do that. But, it wasn't necessarily, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be this, multi-millionaire. It wasn't necessarily that. Like I just wanted to not waste the life that God gave me on this planet.
Yeah, it's true. You have talked a lot about God on your podcast, in your books, here. What is your relationship with God? And how do you use that in your day to day?
Man, I'm only sitting here because of God. Whatever you want to call him, Jehovah, Allah, Jesus Christ. Like I'm literally in this position that I'm in right now because from the time that I can remember, from day one, there was a higher power, guiding me. I know we talk about having like praying grandmothers and, praying mothers. I really, really had that. Like I was a kid going to field service every Saturday morning, right? So, as long as I can remember, I've been a praying person, and not just, praying and asking God for guidance and direction and like literally feeling that presence of a higher power with me, that higher power literally guiding me and directing me and telling me to go do X, Y, and Z, go do this, go do that, like literally. And, it was the times where I didn't listen to that voice the way I should have, that caused so-called negative things that happen to me. And the reason I say so-called negative things is because I feel like everything is just a part of this process called life, right? The so-called good, the so-called bad, everything that happens to you while we're living this thing called life is just part of the process that led you and I to both be sitting here, in this moment. But I just feel like the whole way through, it's just been God. And I mean, I remember last year, I said to God, I was praying, meditating, and I said to God, God, I am ready for every single thing you have planned for me on this planet. I said, I want it all. And I know people might hear that and they might think, monetary things are just the good things that come with success. No, I want to experience every single thing that God wants me to experience on this planet. Because I truly believe that. I truly believe that, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So I don't care what it is. I take good news, so-called good news, the same way I take so-called bad news. Because it's just like, all right, well, what God got planned for me next? Like, I got, even today, you might get some news from a business perspective and you like, I didn't want that to happen, but God clearly has something else planned. So I'm open for it.
So interesting. I have this line. I guess I was raised similar to, I was raised with a lot of religious influence. It didn't permeate, or it did negatively at some point, and I felt like I had to break that. I became sort of an agnostic, atheist. Then I came back to faith. But there's a line that I always think of by this. She was actually a feminist back in the day, Emma Bombeck, and she has this line that I love, which is, she says, when I stand before God at the end of my days, I hope to be able to say, I have not one drop left. I used every single thing that you gave me.
Yes.
And every time I'm struggling, I think about that.
Yes.
And I was wondering for you, you're such a man of you read, multiple books a week and many a month, and you're such a man, like you remember all these quotes. Are there quotes that you live by that you like when your faith is struggling that you repeat in your head?
Yeah, I got two, and these are ones that I actually made up. I deal with really bad panic attacks, right? Like I've got a handle on them, in my more recent years. But like when I was young, I used to deal with like these really severe panic attacks, and when I didn't know what they were, when I didn't know that I was having actual panic attacks, I would always repeat this mantra. I would say, I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ. I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ. I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ. Fuck Satan, fuck Satan, fuck Satan. So I would say, I love Jehovah God and his son, Jesus Christ 3 times, and I would say, fuck Satan 3 times. And the reason I would do that is because, when you read in the Bible, in the book of Job, Job's wife kept telling Job, hey, curse God and die, right? Why don't you just curse God and die? So I used to always be like, why would I curse God? Like I'm not gonna ever curse God and die. So let me just curse Satan, because I feel like this what I now know to be anxiety, this panic attack, is him. So I would say, I love Jehovah God and his son Jesus Christ. Fuck Satan. And I can't even front. It would bring me back to center in a real way. I mean, now when I've done a lot more work on myself, so I do meditation and things like that. So I understand mantras, right? Like you understand the mantra when you're counting your beads, when you're meditating, you understand how that can bring you back to center. I was doing that back then and didn't even know it. And my other motto that I always say, yo, keep God first, stay humble, keep working. Anything that happens in my life, I say, keep God first, stay humble, keep working. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because, one thing I've realized over the last few weeks, because, we're taping this like the first week of January, right? Yep. I've watched a lot of people, like when certain things happen, when certain, like you just talked about, my new deal with iHeart. I've watched a lot of people have conversations about that. Yeah. And man, it really makes me realize how much people don't believe in God and hard work.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Because anytime you get to a certain level of success, they think that you had to get there by some nefarious means. They think that you got to be in the Illuminati, or you busting it open on the casting couch. Men and women, by the way. It ain't just women that they think. It ain't just women they think is busting it open on the casting couch. Men and women they think is busting it open on the casting couch. And it just makes me realize how many people don't believe in God and hard work. Because if you believed in God and hard work, you wouldn't look at somebody else and just say, they only got that because they did some bullshit. You would say, man, I've been watching that person for decades now. I've been doing radio for 28 years, like literally 28 years. Even if you don't count South Carolina, if you've been watching me from the time I started with Wendy, it's been 20 years. You've been watching that person for 20 years. You've literally watched that person grow. You watched them evolve. You watched ups. You watched downs. You watched them go through fire. You watched all of these different things. But the one thing you can't say is that person wasn't consistent and that person wasn't working hard. And then when that person, achieves something, you want to attribute it. You want to give the devil credit for that?
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to give God and hard work any credit whatsoever. So what happens when you achieve a tremendous level of success?
Yeah.
Should we just say, oh, that person only got that because of Satan? That person only got that because they were busting it open on the Catholic couch? I don't even think people understand the narratives they create that will eventually come back and bite them in the ass as well. So yes, I give God all praises, and I am only here because God has been guiding me all of these years.
It's so true. I remember one of my early mentors said to me, if you hate rich people, then how do you think you're ever going to be rich? Mm-hmm. And I never hated. I'm not really a hateful kind of person. Sometimes I wish. Like Sierra was here the other week on a podcast. I was like, what do you do, when you have a hater? And she's a woman of faith. She's incredible. I've really come to respect her a lot. And she had such a good line. She's like, I give it up to God. I don't worry about it. But she's like, I'd be keeping receipts though, And she's like, I'd be keeping some names. And I was like, I love that line. Like I remember, forgive. I'll remember though. But I think what happens with a lot of us is like, isn't it weird how we're wired from being young? Like sometimes I'll be on a stage in a business thing and I'll say to the audience, blank is the root of all evil. What's the root of all evil? And they'll just respond, money.
Yeah.
When did we learn that? It's not actually that in the Bible. It is the love of money is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. But how are we programmed to think that? And so that's when I start realizing maybe it's not always their fault. Like the people who hate on you with this iHeartMedia deal, it hurts my heart a little bit. I'm like, I know right where you are. It's that you still think that money is the root of all evil, and you've never questioned why that programming is in your brain. And you don't know where it came from.
Oh, I know. I know where it came from.
Where do you think?
It came from being broke. Like when you broke, you're going to be disgruntled. When you're broke, you're going to be upset about that, and you're going to say things like "money is the root of all evil." People will say things to justify why they're not in the position that they want to be in. But man, I'm gonna be honest. I know this is gonna sound crazy. I genuinely, truly don't care about money. I care about being happy. I tell folks all the time, man, what is success? Success is you're doing whatever it is that you want to do and it makes you happy. Yeah. I know people right now that, are making tens of millions of dollars and they hate their jobs or they hate, what it is that they're doing. So is that actually success? I know people who are in South Carolina right now making $75,000 a year, $100,000 a year, but they got a roof over their head. They got food on the table. They could take a vacation every now and then when they want to, and they are genuinely happy.
Yep.
Success should be rooted in happiness, not in a monetary amount of, like this should just be rooted in, are you happy doing what it is that you're doing? I am happy doing what it is that I'm doing. I love what it is that I do. I love waking up in the morning to go do morning radio. This is literally what I used to pray for and what I used to dream about. When I was in, Charleston, South Carolina at Z93 Jams in 1999, I was praying for times like this. I wanted to be the super jock. You heard the people I named prior, the Tom Joyners, the Doug Banks, like those were the nationally syndicated radio personalities that a whole generation was listening to. I love being in the middle of one of my unanswered prayers. Oof. So there's no dollar amount that can make me any more happier than I already have been. I'm in the Radio Hall of Fame. I'm literally in the Radio Hall of Fame. I've been successful and happy not because of any money, but because I chose to do something, and God allowed me the wherewithal and the skill to navigate my way to that point.
So one of the things that actually brought me back to you online is you had this post about the trades. And you were talking about
the trades?
Yeah, like plumbing, HVAC, and blue collar.
Got you.
And I was like, oh man, I totally agree. And you were basically saying, I think, in so many words, like blue collar jobs are just as important and powerful as white collar jobs.
More important.
There you go. So I want to talk about this with you. Like, what do you think about university versus trade school? What do you think about blue collar versus white collar? What would you say to a lot of my audience is a lot of blue collar people who are working their way up? Like, give me your take.
I think, number one, you should do whatever it is that you're called to do. But I do think that sometimes we love to push people to what we think is the new trendy thing, right? Right now it's AI. Prior to that, it was like, just social media and the internet in general, right? Like you got to learn how to code and all of these different things. Sure. I do agree with that. But man, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You still gonna need somebody to come through this building and install the plumbing. You still gonna need somebody to come through this building and install the HVAC. This building is going to need, electricians, right? Like you're going to need those people with those skill sets. So I think what the future should look like is people who decide they want to go to trade school and then using some of this new technology to make their jobs easier. It's the next generation of millionaires and, tens of millionaires, maybe even billionaires are going to come from people who know how to merge the two worlds. It's funny, I was having a conversation with one of my guys about this, and, they were like, why you always be telling people to go to trade school? Trade school, those are the black jobs that Donald Trump was talking about. I'm like, those are the jobs that pay green. Yeah. That's not a black job. Like, we are not in this room right now without anybody who understands how to do things with their hands. Like every single piece of equipment in this room, the lighting, everything, the bathroom I used earlier was because of a blue collar worker. We can't exist without them. They make the world go around. So yeah, I do encourage, a lot of people to go to trade school because everybody don't necessarily want to go to, a university and get a degree. And I don't have a problem with that either. Some people want to go to trade school and, do that for a couple of years and come home and start making money immediately. I got, friends and family members back home in South Carolina who've been installing HVAC and, doing electrical work for 30 years, ain't missed a meal, ain't missing no paycheck. They not complaining about, recessions, nothing. They are making their money. Lawn care services, like there is so many, blue collar jobs that people are making six figures on right now.
And you actually, from what I understand, you have an endowment or you help with education as well in South Carolina.
Yeah,
right?
I have my mother went to South Carolina State University. I have an honorary degree from South Carolina State University. And I started this endowment fund called the Ford Family Scholarship. And salute to, a woman I call another mother of mine. Her name is Nicole Brevard. She was somebody who was instrumental in, me even, starting that scholarship fund at South Carolina State University. And it is for people who want to major in communications, of course, because I'm a media personality, English, because my mother's an English teacher, or anything in the mental health profession. And I'm working on something right now that I think is going to really benefit people as far as trade school is concerned. Because I want to give people incentive, to go to trade school. And a lot of people can't afford trade school either. So it's like, let's help some of those brothers and sisters who want to, go to trade school as well. And I'm called right now to salute a young lady named Jordan. Jordan the Welder is her name on Instagram. The reason I'm saluting her is because she's like a Breakfast Club super listener. Like she supports us in everything that we do. Like, I do the Black Effect Podcast Festival in Atlanta, every year. I think we're on our third or fourth year, and she always comes to it, but she's a welder. And I I just find her fascinating because she lives a great life. She's married, right? And she's a welder. And she makes a great living. Like I said, she comes and supports us at everything that we do, and she's a welder. So it's like, we don't always have to, run to entertainment or athletics, to live a good life.
No, in fact, there's way more people that are plumbers making 100K than podcasters.
And we
which is
need
a
them.
Crazy thing to think about.
Yes, and we need them.
Order of magnitude.
Listen, we need them. Like I hate, man, that's why I always say treat the CEO the same way you treat the custodian.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, in a lot of ways, the custodian is more important or just as important. Could you work in a building that was disgusting?
No, absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you heard me. I was like, I heard a bit of noise back. Like,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you knew that the bathrooms in this building was disgusting, you might not ever come here ever again.
Yeah.
So that's why people like the custodians and stuff are important, because they make our lives so much easier. So we got to constantly find ways to make their lives easier as well.
Oh, it's so true. Like one of my favorite people, I opened the book with him, is this guy, Wayne Huizinga. I'm really bummed that he died before I got to meet him. But he was
God bless the dead.
Yeah, he was a garbage man. That's how he
Wow.
started. He was a dropout from college. He went to the military. He became a garbage man, driving a truck. Then he figured out, well, maybe I could buy one truck and I could start my little route. And that route turned into waste management, which became a multi-billion-dollar business. And then Blockbuster that he started and sold before it went sideways, and then owned a bunch of sports teams.
What?
Garbage dude. And so it's
Wow.
like all around us, I think the problem, like the lie that we were told, is that you have to stay the garbage man when you start as the garbage man. It's like, yes, start cleaning the toilets. That's sick. But then how much easier is it to climb the ladder from the guy who did the cleaning to the next rung, to the next rung, to the next
That's
rung,
right.
if you're competent, and then
That's right.
own the motherfucker.
That's right.
I'm on board.
And by the way, even if you don't want to do that, that's cool too.
Yeah, that's true.
There's parking attendants that I look forward to seeing every day. Cause when I see them, they screaming my name. I scream their name.
yeah.
Like some of them might be singing songs. Like, they might be talking to me about stuff that we was talking about on the air. Those are the people I like to talk to. What do we know? We've been doing.
I do a lot of this.
Yeah, like I like talking to working class people, because I definitely, I still consider myself a working class person. I just do a different line of work. But I used to work at Taco Bell. I did telemarketing. I worked at a clothing store. Me and my now wife used to work at a clothing store in the mall when we was, teenagers. I did all of those things, but you really get to see what's going on in the world when you have conversations with working class people. They're the ones that can help you keep your boots on the ground.
Let's say we got one of them listening right now. And they get to listen to you, and they've come to the end of this podcast, and you get to send them off. Like, what are you saying to the person who's on their climb, figuring it out? What would be the advice you would give them today? The thought that you would leave them with?
The first thing I would say to them is thank you. I am grateful that you decided to listen to the Codie Sanchez podcast with Charlamagne the God. Thank you. And thank you for, whatever it is that you're doing every day that makes our lives, better. And I would tell them, and the reason I'm saying thank you is because I would tell them, make sure that they have a attitude of gratitude as well. Because, man, when you wake up every day and you are genuinely grateful for where you are, like you say, God, thank you, man. God, I'm so thankful and grateful to be, number one, just alive, but then number two, to be able to do what it is that I'm currently doing. You will constantly get blessed with more. I think that is what truly makes an individual happy, right? When you have true gratitude for where you are in life, at the moment. Like, you can't wake up every day and hate what it is that you do. If you wake up every day and hate what it is that you do, please change what it is that you do. like you have to. Like, you cannot wake up every day and hate what it is that you do, because you're gonna project that negative energy onto everybody. Like, don't be the garbage man with an attitude, right? Don't be the person working at the fast food restaurant with the attitude. And same goes for us. Like, if I wake up every morning with a negative attitude, I'm gonna get on that radio and I'm gonna project that onto the people. And trust me, I've been that before. I've been in that space where I've been that before, and God had to remind me quick, I can take this away from you. You do know that, right? Like, I could take this away from you in 2 seconds. So you asked for this. You prayed for this. This is what you wanted. This is what you worked hard toward. How dare you come up here every morning and project what you got going on, negatively to the people? that's one of the reasons I started going to therapy. And when I started going to therapy back in 2016, I would literally come on the radio and tell everybody that I'm going to therapy every Friday at 3:00. I started talking to the people about what it was I was dealing with because I owed that to them. They can't turn on the radio and hear me going off on somebody or hear me maybe badgering somebody in an interview. I'm like, damn, why is this person doing? Why is he coming like that? It might be entertaining to some. Some might be like, what is up with this dude? I started to go do the work on myself because I wasn't happy with what was going on with me internally. And so me coming on the radio and expressing that, to other people and tell people I'm going to therapy and trying to get a handle on my anxiety and bouts of depression and things like that, that became a whole movement of its own. And that just started with me being honest with my listeners and not wanting to take for granted the blessing that God had gave me because I know he could take it away from me in a heartbeat. And that was 2016. So that was 6 years in the Breakfast Club. We still here 9 years later. I continue to grow. I continue to evolve. So clearly, I did something right.
Last thing for you, like, what should people be following you on this year? I know you're working on a million things, but like, where should they be? Where are you like, I'm fucking excited. Tune into this, people.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Well, the Breakfast Club is coming to Netflix this year.
Yeah.
So,
That's
you'll
sick. So open up your TV.
Open up your TV. Yeah, like right now, if you can go to Netflix right now, type in Breakfast Club, and you'll see it pop up. I think they say the video podcast start on January 26th, so you can set your reminders for that. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people are having conversations about, Netflix, and they're saying Netflix is trying to compete with YouTube. I don't think Netflix is necessarily trying to compete with YouTube. I just think Netflix is doing what all of these, streaming platforms are doing. Let's bring on content that people want to watch, and let's just see if we can, get as many eyeballs over here and have them, spending their time and attention, with us. So I just think, it's dope for the podcasting game, right? To see where podcasting has grown and where it's evolved to where, a premium, network like Netflix, wants to have us on. And man, I just hope to do more of that. Like, I want to like sitting here talking to you, you have a hit podcast, but what else does Codie Sanchez want to do? Codie Sanchez might have a scripted show in mind based off her life or something. Codie Sanchez might want to do documentaries. Those are the things that I'm thinking about with all of these streaming platforms. Netflix has gotten the game in a real way. I think Apple should follow suit. I think Peacock should follow suit. I think Amazon should follow suit and just tap in with us, right? These new media personalities who, have a lot of different content and IP that we can bring to the table. So that's one thing, Breakfast Club on Netflix. I also have a book imprint called Black Privilege Publishing, and 2026 is going to be a huge year for us because we have Arsenio Hall's memoir.
Oh, I fucking love him.
Yeah, which comes out in April. He's been one of my entertainment inspirations forever. I have 4 huge entertainment inspirations. It's Jay-Z, Clarence Avant, a radio personality named Petey Green, God bless the dead, and Arsenio Hall. And so it's like a privilege to be publishing his memoir. So that comes out in March, I believe, but you can pre-order his book now. My man 2 Chainz, who you should actually have on this podcast because his business mind, he is, a very, very astute, businessman. Like one of my, business ventures, which is the Crystal franchises that me and my wife have in South Carolina. I got into him because of 2 Chainz. He has
a Crystal franchise.
Crystal is a burger spot.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so they serve like little sliders. Like, so they're like the down south White Castle. Oh, and so, he has a role at Crystal. And my man Lil Duval, I saw him one day because Duval does this thing in his community called Duval Day. And I saw him with all these Crystal burgers. And I'm like, damn, I ain't see Crystal in a minute. Where you get Crystal from? And he was like, yo, 2 Chainz is, working with them now. So I reached out to Chainz and, my guy Technique, that's 2 Chainz partner. And they plugged me right in with my man, Jonathan Childs, who owns the Crystal franchises. So me and my wife ended up doing 6 of them. Salute to my guy Billy as well. And so we got 2 Chainz book coming out. The Voice in My Head is God. That comes out in April. My co-host Jess Hilarious, on the Breakfast Club, she has a book coming out called Tell Death Do We Parent. It's a co-parenting book. That comes out this year as well. And we have some other ones that we haven't announced yet, so I can't announce them. But those 3 we've already announced, so you can go pre-order those wherever you buy
Let's do it.
books
Because
now.
pre-orders are so important. It's always like, I don't think people realize, like, if you like one, if you like Arsenio, if they like you, if they like Jess, like the best thing, it's such a gift to do a pre-order because all the publishing nonsense you got to get through. So hopefully you guys go buy some of those books.
Pre-orders are important, but I think that they're I'm not going to say they're a tad bit overrated. I think the publishing company puts a little too much emphasis on them.
Yeah.
Because people buy in the moment. You know, people want to buy like
What
right
about
now.
to hit New York Times? Like the shenanigans I had to go through to try to, I was like, don't buy now. Wait 3 seconds. Only from this spot. It's fucking crazy town.
Yeah.
So my second book, I'm not doing any of that. I'm like, no.
I care about selling books more than I care about the list. Because the list is all politics, you know that.
I can't believe they let me on there. I thought for sure, Main Street Millionaire title about boring businesses making money, like
that's
I'm
what people
a
want.
capitalist. Yeah, but they don't. I don't think.
I'll drive myself crazy worrying about stuff like that. Seriously, because you just don't. I don't know how it works. Like it's all politics with all of those lists. So I just want people to go out there and buy the books, learn something from the books. Most importantly, because all of those different books serve different purposes. Arsenio Hall's memoir is just for anybody who grew up on Arsenio and wants to see the ins and outs of Hollywood in the 90s and why he made the decisions that he made, because what he was doing was groundbreaking and revolutionary back then. So if you ever woof, 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 you're going to love that book. 2 Chainz is literally the voice in my head is God. So it's like a spiritual book that shows you, why he made the moves that he made, from child to, now as an adult. And, Jess' book is about co-parenting. It's literally about how her and her, her first baby's father, have had a healthy co-parenting relationship. So we got a lot of different books for a lot of different people.
Oh, I can't wait to read them.
Absolutely.
Charlamagne the God, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cody.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
We are sitting on a generational wealth creation event. If you're here, this means you're a builder. As we're going through these next 3 days, I want you to know that the American dream starts with you guys by our little Main Street revolution.
And then I just want to give you guys permission to take a leap of faith.
If I knew then what I know now, I would probably do bigger deals.
It's given us an extra layer of security that we never would have had.
I am so excited to introduce you to some ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
We have to really take the time to make a meaningful connection. It's the fact that there is a lack of connection and the person just wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Thanks for taking the question.
Are there extra things that need to be done when trying to pay off bad debt?
Great question.
I buy businesses so simple, even your grandmother understands them. That's the game.
It's you and me versus the problem. We're going to try to solve this together.
I know how to build trust in a very advanced way.
How does buying a business fit into the vision for your life?
Today, my goal is to teach you some fundamental skills that you can use to accelerate your business.
If you make a promise in the mirror, know that your word is freaking iron to you.
These people on Wall Street, they want to keep the normal people out of the game.
Main Street millionaires are all around this world, and it starts with each and every one of you.
What are you waiting for? Your path to ownership starts now. Get your ticket to join us on Main Street. Join us today.